that Malaysia should actually focusing a little bit more, and also medium-sized solar farms, where as we know that the acquisition of land, to find a suitable land for in Malaysia is getting more and more challenging, because more and more Malaysian companies are coming into the pictures. And we also see some what they call unequal or unbalanced policy of various state governments when it comes to the utilization of land, or converting from land into the solar project. Different states will have a different policy. This is something that maybe we should really have some, the state government will really need to take attention into. Maybe I also think that, as what Ibrahim has said also, the rooftop solar is something that we have a lot of area with good sunlight, and then there are a lot of CNI, especially commercial industrial buildings with empty roof. That is where a good potential candidate for developing CNI solar rooftop sector in this region. If you look at our neighbors, for example, Vietnam last year, December alone, more than 9,000 megawatts of CNI rooftop solar were commissioned in 1 month, 9,000 megawatts in 1 month. So this is something that if there is enough incentive, if there's enough quota available, I'm sure there are a lot of investors, there are a lot of people who will put in what they call it, investment into this sector. As we know, there are a lot of multinational companies, especially, who are keen to buy renewable energy.
Mr. Gan, if you don't mind me asking, is Leader Energy into the rooftop solar space?
Yes. We are now currently having close to 20 megawatt. We have rooftop solar projects in, as I said just now, Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, Taiwan, and Thailand. So we are already in. We are already having a 20 megawatt under operation. Another, I would say 80 megawatt under development. So by next year, I should hit about 100 megawatt just on CNI rooftop solar.
Understood. And I suppose your comment just now on land, maybe Encik Ibrahim, can take it on and somehow work it into one of those plans or something like, I know, I mean, it's difficult to sort of, push this, I think, because, land is land, right? It's governed by the National Land Code, they have land authorities, but maybe authorities should sit down and put heads together and try to, get something sorted. I mean, this has been a perennial issue, I think.
Yep. I think most of the developers are facing that challenge.
Yeah. If I may just add a little bit on that, I see that based on our engagement with some of the state governments, we can see that some of the states are very welcoming on terms of the offering their lands for the solar developments. But I would say that this is mostly on the northern part of Malaysia, Peninsular Malaysia, that they are very welcoming. But compared to other states, they sometimes have some other plans for the land use. Sometimes they have different plans. So these are the alignments that need to be done between the federal government aspirations and also the states.
And I mean, I suppose more needs to be done, because you mentioned northern states, even Kedah, right, I think they sort of allow a year-to-year sort of permit thing, but I think they should really look into allowing
just for information, Jack, they change their policy again. When there's a change of government, the policy changes. As you know, we have 2 large-scale solar farms in Kedah at this moment, and we are facing some land conversion issues.
Hopefully that gets sorted soon then. Stefan, I mean, what about you? I mean, green cells, right? You have a huge footprint in Europe, right? Some projects in this part of the world as well. I know you have a plant in Pekan, right? What have you been up to? What has green cells been up to? Right? Are you in NEM, Celco, right? And and what are the things that I think you face, right, as a foreign developer?
Yeah. So for Malaysia, besides our successful 44 megawatt DC LSS2 project, which was the first that applied single axis trackers combined with bifacial modules, we've also been engaged as EPC in NEM projects and Selco projects in Malaysia. We're also building a pipeline these days, and in the region we've had as EPC large-scale projects in the Philippines, Mindanao, in Vietnam, and right now we are developing new projects in Malaysia, subject to, that is one of the challenges I'm going to probably comment on. Besides Malaysia, also that we develop in Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and like Gambun and Leader. Also, we are still looking in Vietnam because we believe this is a long-term sustainable market, which is very beneficial and very open to foreign investors. The key challenges, one of the more recent key challenges was obviously the tightening of foreign participation in the LSS program. So while LSS 1 to LSS 3 were open to 49% foreign minority shareholding, starting with LSS 4, made foreign participation all but impossible for companies such as us with tight internal requirements on the viability of legal structures. So while we do understand and share the government's intention to create a level playing field for the local players, we believe this could be balanced with like some foreign involvement, as foreign companies like with our project there's a knowledge transfer, as you mentioned, Jack. We are a major player in Europe. A lot of technologies that are rolled out there or that were common there will find its way into Southeast Asia as well. So I remember at the time we discussed with ST and some of the agencies and also some of the banks that we are using single access tracker and bifacial. It was for many the question, is that viable? Does that make sense in Malaysia? We're at the equator. Does it make, like, we cannot believe but it is viable. And if you look now, it's a lot of companies actually doing the same type of design. So we do think it's beneficial for Malaysia as well to have some foreign involvement. Knowledge transfer, we usually pay slightly higher wages to our local employees. And also on the cost digression, there is just the transfer between different market. We built in the US, we built in the Middle East, Europe. So there's always an exchange. Where's the new trends? What would work in other markets? So we hope that in future, not only in the LSS program, but also in other programs, foreigners will be considered, as there should be a balanced approach necessary. So no one wants to see LSS 3 race to the bottom prices by some large foreign companies coming in and kind of quoting costs that then within a changing market environment are difficult to actually execute. But I think a balance like it was in LSS 1, 2, and 3 with foreign minority involvement should be beneficial to the country.
Yeah, I think that's something which we hear a lot, and hopefully, this, Encik Ibrahim, hopefully this is addressed somewhere. I mean, I'm not putting you on the spot, I know.
Yeah, I fully understand.
Yeah.
All these inputs are very good, because like these are part of the things that we are required from the industry developers itself. Because this is the kind of feedbacks that we need to formulate for the next RE programs, for example, to make sure that aside from pushing for the price down, we also want to make sure that the project can be sustainable throughout the PPA terms. Yeah.
Of course. I mean, and speaking about technology, I mean, we have with us here technology providers, right? Solutions providers. I'll start with Elva, right, from Trina. Hi, how are you?
Hey, Jack, good afternoon.
Hi. So, I mean, we know Trina is a major player in the PV module space, right? I mean, I mean, if you don't mind, could you just give us a very quick rundown of your business in Malaysia, and what are your biggest challenges and opportunities for you here?
Okay, so actually Malaysia is always, of course, it's not the biggest in Southeast Asia, but I can say it's top 3. Of course, last year, like Mr. Gan said, the Vietnam market is quite crazy, but even before Vietnam, Malaysia is always the top 3, and I think the capacity is almost reach 1 gigawatt, the gigawatt scale, but unfortunately, most of the time it's quite tough. So maybe it's around like 800 megawatt or 900 megawatt, but it cannot really reach the gigawatt scale market. So which is quite pity. So like I think now the local players or overseas players always want to say Malaysia, the capacity can become bigger, at least to go for the gigawatt scale. And for China, of course, we are the solar panel supplier, but now we also involved in the tracker. So previously, we are more focused on the overseas players who handle the projects and the customer who doing the leasing program in Malaysia. Of course, both for the solar farm as well as a CNI project. And from end of last year, we try to divest our direction. So more focus on the local players and the SME. Of course, like Mr. Gan and Stefan from Green Cell previous, I also worked together with them. And I think these 2 companies are quite pioneer because they would like to try the new technology. Like Stefan said, they are also the first company in Malaysia who use a bifacial plus a tracker system in the solar farm in the LSS2. Also, leaders at that time, they also use, I think at that time still use a 166 technology. At that time, it's still considered very new technology. Of course, for now, maybe this technology also almost phased out within next few years. But there are many companies who wanted to try the new technology, but unfortunately, because the LSS timing or the process, because once you provide the PPA, it's very hard to change the technology, etc., or it takes a long time. So many players, they still prefer to use the how to say, it's like old technology. I mean, like of course the product still there, but because Malaysia, like especially LSS, the time is quite long. Maybe let's say for LSS 4, for now LSS 4, the PPA signed this year and the COD maybe 2023, so it's around 2 to 3 years. But for the module technology, actually starting from 2019, we change very fast. Maybe your project not yet COD, the goods already phased out. So we also suggest like the SEDA or TMB, they can just listen to the new technology and try to use the new technology and give some bonus. Yeah, like let's say now we are also like China, we are the pioneer on the 210 technology. So later, I think our product manager will also introduce our new technology. Yeah, so we will also would like to push the solar industry to the 6.0 era, which means the solar panel now can reach the 600 watt plus. Yeah, so I think for us, for China, we are in Malaysia, we try to promote the latest technology here, but not like still 400 or something. Yeah, so I think this is what we are doing, as well as we are strongly to push the tracker in Southeast Asia market. But Malaysia, I think currently only 3 projects, but I think previous got a lot in other Asian countries. Yeah. And of course, we focus on the LSS as well as CNI. Actually, CNI, I think, will be our main segment, because LSS, like now we still don't know whether we have LSS 5. If we have, then how big is it? And when is the COD time? It's not really so confirmed for us, because we are supplier. We will take the like the shipment yearly, but not like as 2 or 3 years. So CNI part will be more stable for us. And I think it's good that in Malaysia, always I have the NEM or self-consumption is going, and every year it's I think it increased maybe 100 megawatt per year. So which is quite be good. So currently, like this year, we will majority focus on the CNI rooftop project.
Understood. I have a question for you, but I'll probably save it to the back, right? I mean, because we're on the note on technology and whatnot. I mean, we can ask Kylie, so Kai, right, from Chin Power, right, to just give a view as well, right, on the technological aspect. I mean, Chin Power is a new entrant to the Malaysian market, right? So I think if you don't mind just quickly giving us a background as to what Chin does, right? Its marketing strategy, and what is the future trend of the of Chin's future plans in Malaysia.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Yeah, actually, for the CPS was founded in the 2009 and have more than 15 years histories. Belong to the Chin group, and we can prevent the PV inverter to our client and the PCS for the storage system. But in the past 6 years, we main focus at the North American market and have the #1 market share in the US. But last year, in the 2020, we expand into Asia market, especially in Malaysia. We will prevent competitive price for the CNI and also SS projects. For the product, actually, we think the high power string inverter will be welcomed by more and more ground PV stations owner, because O&M cost will be more cheaper and the LCOE will be better. And for the CNI application, more simple and diverse communication will be favored by the end user. Yeah, as a main product, CPS will provide the 110 kilowatt string inverter to the CNI market, provide 275 kilowatt string inverter to the ground PV plant. Yeah. Last year, CPS have developed the largest capacity string inverter, which is 275 kilowatt for the Malaysia market. It has the best temperature performance because the nominal power at 40 degrees without any power derating is very suitable for the Malaysia's market. This inverter can increase the power generation by 1% and also reduce the BOS cost compared with others. Yeah.
Thanks, Kai. Just one follow-up question, right?
Yeah.
How do I put it? Do you think that, I mean, it's a very competitive market, right? It's a very congested market as well. There are plenty of solutions providers, right? Do you consider yourself a little bit late to the party, or, or do you think it's still early days?
No, but we will find more partners in the Malaysia's local market to build the service systems. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for your response. And I mean, the next question, going back to Ibrahim, right, Seda, I mean, you touched about third-party access, right? You spoke about corporate PPAs. What about the other things that, that Seda was previously, I think, exploring, like P2P trading, right? Renewable energy certs, I mean, and the carbon trading scheme. I know some of these may fall under Seda's ambit, some of them don't, right? But I mean, could you give us some views on all these programs, the status of them? Because there seem to be so many of them, but we're not really sure at what stage are we at each of them.
Okay, thank you, Jack. So in response to that, I would say that the drivers coming from the top, and because like before this, when we are looking into more towards the low carbon pathway, but as mentioned by Mr. Jack just now, that yesterday we already get the news regarding that the Malaysia commitment towards the carbon neutral agenda. So I would say that this towards realizing these targets, I would say that before this is basically before yesterday. Our direction is more towards realizing our targets to the Paris Agreement 2015, which is to to reduce the carbon intensity by 45% by 2030 and to realize the RE target, 31% and 40%. So I would say that currently we are looking to just that. And when we are looking at just that, we can see that the current mechanism seems as might be able to accommodate for all interests. For example, like we have the large-scale solar to promote for ground-mounted or floating solar, and we have the net energy metering to promote for the rooftop markets, for example, and we have the feed-in tariff to promote for other resources. But looking at this, the current commitment that when we're going to the carbon neutrals, more initiative need to be done, and it's just not on the power sector itself, and it is require more towards cross-sectorals. And as we can see that towards these carbon emissions and carbon targets, it actually involves more industry, more sectors, including the urban developments, including the transportations, for example. And this kind of initiative need to be collaborative and work together among the cross-sectoral and cross-ministries. So I would say that the carbon trading is an effort by another Ministry of Environment towards addressing the totality from all sectors' contributions to the carbon emissions. So these are indeed a very good tools, but the talk on this carbon trading also has been going on about, I would say, 1 to 2 years. And currently, I say that they are developing the tracking platforms to enable for this kind of tradings. I would say sometime, hopefully by sometime next year, we can already like start something the alpha phase for this project itself. And with regards to the P2P, for example, like before last year, we already like concluded the assessment, and we can see a good response from the industry players to participate either as the seller, as the producer, or also as the buyer. So we can see a good market response towards this demand. But however, currently we are like last time we already embarked on the alpha phase, and one of the enablers is to determine the grid charges to allow for the something like some people call it grid charges and some people might refer it to the tolling charges to utilize the existing transmission or distributions facilities to allow for the peer-to-peer tradings. So currently these are the mechanisms that still being formulated by the energy commissions. And also aside from this, we also try to embark on the smaller scale. If you can see from the NEM 3.0, under the NEM Nova, we already like allow for the virtual aggregations. So these are one of the ways to test back the technology if Malaysia is already like ready for this peer-to-peer tradings. So to allow for a smaller scale deployment, we only allocate it for the NEM Nova, the 300 megawatt. That's the limitation we did it. So upon the successful of these mechanisms, we can gain more insights and more data from the industry to see that if we can upscale the deployment for this kind of tradings. So then again, like looking forward in terms of introducing more renewable energy in the industry, we already also like receive a lot of new resources, new modules to be implemented. To name a few, like corporate PPAs, TPA, and we're also now talking about cross-border energy supply. So a lot of this is on the plate, and currently the ministry is juggling to which is have the best values to the nations and enable can unlock for more social economic benefits. So like in line with, for example, like the large scale solar, it is good in terms of boosting up the capacity from the renewables in the nations. But as we can see, compared to like the NEM nature of projects, more people can benefit from this kind of projects because it's a smaller scale, distributed, and more players can be participated in. Compared to the large-scale solar, it is a huge investment of projects, and limited parties need to be can embark on this kind of program. So a good balance between these two models, for example, need to balance out to make sure that the benefits from this renewable energy can be felt by many.
Thanks for your input, right? And I mean, since we have a regulator, policymaker here, right, Mr. Gan, I think we really have to make the best use of our, our opportunity, right? I mean, you mentioned issues, just now with, building plants in Malaysia, and you have, participated in Vietnam. I mean, regional plants as well. What do you, what do you think, can be sort of learned? What can we learn from all, all these other nations? I mean, of course, each of us, I think, do well in certain aspects, right? I mean, we are not, to say very far behind, right, or very far ahead. But what do you think we can learn from these places where you have participated in?
Yeah, Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Ibrahim. In fact, what you have just said, Ibrahim, actually taken out a lot of words out of my mouth, because one of the focus or key area that I think that especially Malaysia can improve on is the corporate PPA and the third party peer-to-peer PPA. Because for example, I'm also active in Philippines. Philippines, the third party PPA is already very actively being utilized there. You can actually have a solar farm in the southern part of Luzon supplying to a customer in Manila, through the private, another transmission network. So this is something that definitely in Malaysia, that is something that I have already identified. It actually something that we should be able to really go into. And if we look into the country in the region, most of the countries have already gone into that. Even Vietnam is already looking into corporate PPA. Malaysia, I'm actually happy with what has been announced yesterday and what Ibrahim just said. So there are a lot of other opportunities. For example, the quota for CNI rooftop solar, the rate of take up. If you look at for the CNI this year, it was just a couple of months and it's already fully taken up. So I believe through MPIA and a lot of these associations, we have been appealing to SEDA to enlarge or come up with a bigger quota for open up, because definitely there are a lot of potential opportunities that a lot of developers are looking at, and back to the corporate PPA. In fact, I've been approached a couple of times by some of these multinational companies whether I'm able to supply them green energy, but unfortunately, because I am dealing with some of them in other countries, in Indonesia, in Singapore, so they are looking into investment in Malaysia. But then one of the criteria is, of course, whether they are able to get supply of so-called the green energy. This is where the corporate PPA and also the third-party PPA, peer-to-peer PPA, where it's going to be interesting if it's open up. And definitely, as I said, I'm excited what has been announced yesterday by the Prime Minister under the 12 Malaysian Plan. The government is targeted to reduce greenhouse gas emission by 45%, but definitely, and also carbon neutral nation by 2050. As the Chair Ibrahim just said, they need a lot of cross-sectional and urban development. For example, we are also looking into some of the EV charging in Singapore, because I think the Singapore is also pushing for EV charging policies, electric car, and very soon they also slowly want to remove the carbon, what they call petroleum car. So you need a government policy that push for it. So things like EV charging, things like battery storage, this is something that I believe in line with this government 12 Malaysian plan to achieve carbon neutrality. That is something that a lot of effort needs to be done. The other topic I want to touch on is what I've just said also, Ibrahim, is on the carbon trading, carbon pricing and carbon tax. For example, again, I'm using the Singapore example, the REC, Renewable Energy Certificate, is already widely traded in Singapore. In Malaysia, even though there is an opportunity, but it has not been really promoted. And unfortunately for large-scale solar farms in Malaysia, if we look at our PPA, the green attribute belongs to TNB. It's not even I developed the solar farm, I put in investment, but I don't enjoy the green attribute. It goes straight away to TNB. This is something that, I think maybe to be fair to the developer, this green attribute should go back to the developer who actually put in money and investment and effort into the project. Jack, these are some of the views that I have. Of course, I can continue talking for another next 1 hour, but I believe I would want to give other people a chance to contribute.
Yeah, I mean, we can ask, I guess, Stefan as well, right? I mean, from the EU, right? Do you have any input or insight from, Green Cells' experience from the EU? How are there any frameworks, regulations, or programs that you think we can probably consider, right?
Yeah, well, not so much from the EU. I think the EU now with its markets, we in many countries the EU simply doesn't need any incentive schemes anymore because electricity costs are comparably high, and in at least in the southern European countries such as Spain, Italy, markets there do not need incentives anymore. So. What is certainly helpful and what we already touched on before is regulation in terms of like land conversion and those. So in general, I would say where the EU market works fairly well is in being predictable. So in having in the past the subsidy schemes that were running with a few exemptions like 2008 in Spain, but kind of consistently running the program, which allows all stakeholders, the citizens, to plan. So what is always what makes it a bit challenging is if programs change in between. So I mentioned earlier, LSS for us as a foreign investor, we were prepared to submit an LSS4 project, just then to be stopped like basically shortly before the finishing line. And the same is a bit what also Ganbun commented on, and Ibrahim as well, is that the NEM project was, I think it took off fairly slowly. It required a lot of explaining and convincing customers of the benefits, why they should do that. For many, it was, what is the payback time? Why would I do that? So in the end, the industry, I think, did a very good job together with the government to convince Malaysian companies that this is a very, very viable and beneficial approach. But then, rather than continuing the program by increasing the quota, there was a complete revision. So I do appreciate Ibrahim, all the work that went into it. It was very thought through, but I think for us it was sometimes difficult then to go back and say, okay, so we can't run like the projects we have been planning for a year is not going to work the same way. So we have to change it now to Selco. Here's the new numbers. So that makes it always a bit difficult to plan ahead. One other, not so much European approach, but another approach that could be very interesting, I believe, for Malaysia, which worked in the US, is the renewable portfolio standard. So to kind of leave it to the market and to TMB, which is one of the largest utility companies in Southeast Asia, and with a very, very stable grid, a lot of experience, to kind of do the government's job in coming up with a right approach. So under the RCPS, it would be basically the government obliging or setting certain targets for TMB to buy or to contribute a certain share in renewables, which then usually leads to the situation where TMB, as they have done before, will do some investments in renewable themselves, but they will also, through single buyer, probably start their own auctions, their own RFPs, and their own direct negotiation projects. So which kind of takes a bit the burden from the regulator to look into every detail and to have an ear at the market, what is going on, and rather moves it into the energy generation industry. So in the US, that was very successful. It's very long-term plannable. So that would certainly be something for the future that could be interesting for Malaysia too, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, you raise a good point on getting one single entity to do it. I mean, I suppose the benefit of having a monopoly like TNB is that the government can incentivize them to do as you've said, right? They would have sorted out a huge chunk of their problems, right, without having to go to every single small player out there to get them to do that. I mean, on I suppose everything things will change if there's a if there's a change in, ultimately it's, what is the benefit to me, right? We are all corporations, all of us, businesses. Yes, there's a certain sustainability impact, but I think, there's also the price aspect to it. Like there's also the whole aspect of, how will it hit my bottom line, right? And I suppose if you can give people, the right incentives or the right guidance, right? Things like that can be achieved, right? And on the note of pricing, I have a question for Elva, actually, Trina, right? So this question is from Yo Kiet Lim. His question is, we have been getting feedback from our counterparts that the pricing of silicon wafers is trending upwards, right? So it's been moving up, I think, a while, right? And the business of solar manufacturers in Malaysia may be affected, right, due to investigation by the US government into circumvention of solar anti-dumping measures. I think, Malaysia, Vietnam, right? Considering these factors, what will be the impact on pricing on solar modules for the remainder of the year and probably into 2022 as well?
Wow, that's a very hard question. Actually, just before our webinar, actually, we just got one news that the silicon price for today actually is already reached 260 RMB per kilogram. So just let's go back for, let's say, maybe in Q2 last year, the silicon price is only 80. So now it's 260. So it's around more than three times. So that's why I understand that this year, not only module supplier, but all the EPC developer are all quite suffering. And we also predict actually Q4, the cost will be more crazy due to the dual control policy in China, because China now we also need to have a zero carbon, and also to different province and different towns, because it's driven by the policy. And let's say actually for next year, we also didn't really predict the silicon price will drop suddenly, because currently I think for COVID as a pandemic, everyone already get used to it. So it won't be the barrier for us now, but the issue is that the demand will still be huge. So we predict the next year will be, the global demand will still be more than 200 gigawatt, but the silicon supply will be, it's only a bit more than 200 gigawatt. So we can see the supply and the demand is quite balanced. And currently, because I think now the different province in China, we also have the restriction on the electricity consumption. So that's why every factory in every province, we need to reduce our capacity we need to get rid of some low efficient capacity. So I believe it will continue until next year. Currently, I think no one can tell this, the customer how much will be the pricing next year. But anyway, we are not really so positive. Let's say when customer talking with us on like when the time, like the panel can go for lower than 20 cents below, maybe it's gone already. Yeah, because the inflation, we all understand that the inflation is there. It's not only for the solar panel. I think all the material already increased. Yeah. So
what about you, Kai? I mean, are you facing the same issues as Elva? I mean, the manufacturing constraints in China, for example, are your products also suffering a fluctuation in prices or quite stable?
I think soon. Yeah, soon. I think our factory will also, I think all the factory will be affected. We have to reduce the capacity because currently our supplier like EVA, glass, and silicon, they all have the restriction on the capacity, which means our raw material supply will be in huge shortage compared to last 3 quarters. Yeah, so yeah, so that's why you can see actually the EVA maybe within 1 hour it can increase 200%. I think you never saw this for last 10 years. And one day the polysilicon price can increase 20%. Yeah, so we never expected it. So that's why like for the downstream, like a solar cell or solar panel suppliers, so we are also quite suffering. because let's say we already give the promise to the client, but our supplier cannot give us the goods, or they have to increase their price. So now this is a very embarrassing time for everyone. Yeah, so that's why like we always, I think Trina, we really made lots of webinars, and not only for Malaysia, for Europe and for America, because we also wanted to pass the information to all the investors or the regulation maker, because for panel, our margin is already very thin already. So you can check all the top 5 or top 10 module supplier. Of course, except for solar. Yeah, I think for silicon, for the Chinese manufacturer, our gross margin is only around 10%. So, and our net profit also maybe single digital 5% or something. So there's not so much space for the module supply to reduce. So then like currently everyone is talking about the LCOE instead of like the module cost or inverter cost, because we have to use a new technology to, let's say you use the same module or inverter, but your other cost can be reduced. So your LCOE can be lower. So this is the information we pass to the market, and as well as like currently not only China, every top supplier are promoting the N-type. So we're trying to make the generation higher with less DC capacity. So your LCOE can be lower. So that's why like when I talk with a client on the LSS4, I also ask them question whether your DC capacity can be changed. This is very important, because you cannot say, oh, during PPA, when you sign the PPA, you said that your DC-AC ratio is 1.3 or 1.5, then you cannot reduce, because when the module or inverter or technology improved or updated, then you can use less DC capacity. You can use a bifacial or tracker or N-type to reduce your cost, because currently the silicon, I think that this cost, no one can give the exact answer. Even until, of course, we are sure it will be, in fact, it has a negative impact for next year. But how about the 2023? We have no idea. We also need to check like how this inflation can go. But maybe normally it will go last for several years. Yeah.
That's good. I suppose if you can give a price now for 2023, a lot of people will be writing to you after this.
Yeah, but we really cannot meet the target price. Yeah.
Yeah. Our host has asked us to wrap up, right? Unfortunately, I think we've used up our time, right? Sorry about that. I mean, we would love to, continue speaking to our panelists, but we need to wrap up. I think there's a next session. So I mean, thank you everyone for spending your time this afternoon, giving your thoughts on this matter. I think the space will be an evolving one and a very interesting one, especially with the announcement by the Prime Minister yesterday. I think we will see a lot of progress soon. Thank you everyone. And thank you, Chair Ibrahim, in advance for taking on our comments and questions and issues. And
yeah, look forward. Like if every time else outside this platform that we want to have a further discussion, we are most welcome. We really love to talk with all the developers and technology providers to enhance the policy making for the future path. Sure. Right, thank you everyone, and stay safe.
Thank you.
Okay. Great thanks to our speakers for wonderful discussion and insight sharing. Malaysia has great potential in solar, and it's attracting many companies to invest and build factories here. At the same time, some companies have brought advanced products and technologies to promote and boom the market. Next, let's go ahead with Trina Solar to learn about the latest product of manufacturers. Mr. Lim Chongbo, Head of Product and Marketing of APAC Trina Solar, will give a technology showcase with the topic, Trina Vertex Series, the ideal module for large-scale solar projects. Lim is handling product and marketing in APAC at Trina Solar. He has over 9 years of PV industry experience and supporting a broad base of customers in different segments on product and technical matters. Now let's welcome.
Thank you, New Venture. So once again, thank you everyone for the time today. I'm Nick from Trina Solar. So let me share my screen. Okay, I hope everyone can see my screen now. Okay, so once again, thank you for the time and stay safe in these COVID times. So I'd like to take this opportunity to give an introduction about Trina Solar and our Vertex series. Just some background on Trina Solar. We are founded in 1997. We have over 20 years of experience in the PV module manufacturing. And of course, one of the key highlights that we have been world number 1 in 2014. And from there, we are always in the top 3 solar manufacturers on a global basis. Then last year in 2020, we have relisted onto the Shanghai Star Market and also launched our 210 mm high power modules into the market. So in terms of globalization, we are cumulative shipment of about 70 gigawatt as of March 31st, 2021. We have supplied to over 100 of customers on a worldwide and have more than 15,000 employees. So basically for ASEAN and Asia Pacific, our regional HQ is in Singapore, and where we support the ASEAN market, India, Australia, and also to the west of India to some of the Middle East side. So in terms of bankability, we are ranked 5 times in a row top most bankable module supplier by Bloomberg New Energy Finance. So our footprint in APAC has been significant. So over the last 3 years, we have shipped almost 9 gigawatt in Asia Pacific, and we are definitely one of the top 3 players in the region. So in terms of new leading technology, so as mentioned, we have launched our 210 mm high power modules. So this is one of the pioneer in the industry to use this large wafer to make into the solar module. Then as my colleague Alva mentioned earlier, we are also looking into the N-type popcorn technology, and this is expected that to be available very soon in the next quarter. Then at the same time, in terms of the advanced HJT technology, is something which we are also reviewing. So we are working on the different manufacturing to see when we can officially commercialize it and then bring it to the market to offer even better technology and higher power for our customers. So this is just some background on how module power has developed over the last 10 years. So it has been especially exciting for the last 2 years since 2020, where we started off the 500 watt, and then in a span of just 1 year plus, we have almost reached now to 700 watt. So this is using the combination of different technologies, including the larger cell and of course the P-type module. So we do see the interesting trend that since June 2021 in SNEC China exhibition, you see that over half of the module suppliers have exhibited 210 mm modules with the power bin ranging between 600 to 700. So this is definitely an up and coming trend, which will slowly adopted by most of the manufacturers in the solar industry. So Trina here ourselves, we have also supplied many projects using our 210 Vertex module. So on a global basis, we have supplied to Europe, America, Japan, and also in Asia Pacific, including projects in Singapore and also Vietnam. This is our complete Trina Vertex family. Starting from the left, we have our Vertex S. So this is the 400 watt module, which is targeted for residential market. And then in the center, we have the 1819 series. So this is mainly for rooftops and commercial and industrial rooftops. So between power bin will be ranging from 500 watt to 550 watt. Now on the right will be our 20 series and 21 series. So these are used for large utility projects together with the trackers. So these power bins will be from 600 to 607. So basically our Vertex family can cover all 3 segments of residential, commercial, and industrial rooftops, and also ground mounted utility projects. And of course, there are other special projects like floating agriculture complementary PV project, fishing complementary PV projects. So this can also be deployed using Trina Vertex module. So this is some of the technologies that we have put into our solar modules. So starting from the top left corner, we'll be using of the large wafer size, which is 210 mm. Then because the wafer size is increased, we also increase the number of bus bar. So you can see we are using 12 bus bar. And then as the wafer size become bigger, we also upgrade our cutting technology. So we have changed from the previous high temperature laser and mechanical to using non-destructive cutting. So this is using a low temperature laser to slice through a cell. So this will enable us to maintain similar mechanical integrity of the cut cell as compared to the full cell. Then lastly, we also use the high density interconnection technology, which is basically to minimize the space between each cell so that we can improve the module efficiency by 0.2 to 0.3%. So let me go a little bit more detail into our Vertex series, which is available in both bifacial and monofacial. So our range basically for these larger footprint modules, it will cover power beams from 550, 600, 670 watt. So you can see here, this is our 550-19 series product information. So as mentioned, we are using 210 mm cell, multi-bus bar, non-destructive cutting, high density connection, and this is based on a 5x11 layout. So there's 110 cells, and it's all half cut. And interesting point to note is that for Trina, we adopt this low voltage, high current design. So as compared to the others, for example, the 182 family, the VOC of the 182 will be approximately in the 47 to 48, 49 volts range. Whereas for Trina Vertex, our VOC is at a 38.1 volt range. So how does this help in terms at the system level? So you can see here, we can connect more modules per string. So this gives us total power per string will be higher as compared to the others. So when we have a higher power per string, actually have an impact onto the BOS cost, which will enable us to get some savings at the system level. So this is an interesting table which shows how the system voltage has changed over the last 10 years. So, maybe 10 years ago, people are all familiar with 600 volts, and then there's 1000 volts. And it took a little bit of time before we transit over to the 1500 volts. So you can see here, as the module power increases, and with Trina low voltage design, we are actually able to connect more modules per string, and this helps to achieve more savings in terms at the BOS level. So next is our ultra high power 670 watt module. So you can see here, this is a 132 cell, 2x66 layout. So the dimension is about 2.38 by 1.3. So we are also offering it in the backsheet monofacial and also the double glass bifacial. So similarly, it's also based on the low voltage design concept. So we have worked with third-party analysis agencies. Like previously, we have worked with DMV, and this time we have also worked with Fraunhofer to do the simulation using Trina Vertex module as compared to the other module types in the market. So there's two different scenarios that we have chosen. One is in Germany using a fixed tilt installation, and then one is in Spain using a one-row tracker configuration. So overall, the conclusion is quite obvious that when we use the Trina high power modules, we are able to achieve the best LCOE at both the location. So we also have a lower BOS cost because of our higher power output. And the other additional benefits will be the other savings in terms of the BOS cost because less strings are needed because of the higher power per string. So details of the report are available. If you are interested, please contact Trina. We are happy to share with you on the details of this report. Okay, so next, I would like to talk a bit on our reliability because Vertex module is, I would say, relatively new, as also the 210mm. So we do have a lot of questions from different areas or doubts from different areas questioning, whether can modules be so big and be stable to use for the system level. So over here, we have done a lot of extensive testing and designing of the module. So based on the testing and our frame design, we are happy to say that we are able to achieve the standard 5,400 Pascal front and 2,400 Pascal back, which is the basic IEC standards requirement. So in terms of the mechanical loading wise, there's definitely no issue. It is equivalent as compared to traditional module. So this is achieved by optimizing our frame design in terms of the thickness, the frame chamber, the clampings, and the crossbeam connector design optimization. So all this will contribute to making our Vertex module as strong as the traditional module. So in order to showcase this, we have also done various tests, 6 tests actually, which covers the static mechanical load and non-uniform snow load test, extreme temperature mechanical load test, hill test, dynamic mechanical load test, and also the wind tunnel test. So just a little bit more details. This is based on our dynamic load comparison. So you can see here, when we use our ultra high power 670 watt module, we're able to withstand up to almost 20 times the test with no deformation as compared to the other competitive products. Then another commonly heard question is that having a bigger cell and a higher current result in higher operating temperature of the module. So to answer that, we need to know where is the high current coming from. So you can see we do a simple comparison at for 210 versus the 182 at the same cell efficiency. So we'll see here the number of bus bar is 12 as compared to 9. And then where is the high current? Basically, the high current actually is at position 1, which is the junction box, and position 2, which is the middle bus bar. Then for the current density at 4 and 5, which is actually on the surface of the cell and also the bus bar. So this is the same as the traditional module. And when the current flows from there onto the cross-sectional string connector, so that is where you can see the current is slightly increased. So over here, we have optimized the thickness and width of the string connector. So this will help to reduce any partial area shading that might occur. So overall, the whole temperature is the same as compared to the other traditional module. So to further prove that, we also perform outdoor testing where we measure the temperature of the module over 1 day to check whether is there any period where the temperature between 210, 166 and 182 is significantly different. So we do see that there is no time where there is very big temperature difference between all the 3 different cell sizes. Then in terms of DC cable loss, so people tend to think that when the current is higher, then there will be more cable loss at the system level. So we need to understand what is DC cable loss. Basically, it is the electrical resistance and part of the electricity is converted to heat, which constitute to this cable loss. So this is actually decided by the current and also by the cable length. Although the 210mm module is higher in current, but because of the higher power beam, so at the system level, actually the total cable length used is actually shorter as compared to the 182. So based on our case study, it's approximately about 39% less cable use as compared to the others. So when you put it into the comparison level, you will see that on the right side table, top table, when we compare with the 182, then you will see in terms of the cable loss, once we increase the cable diameter from 4 to 6, then the cable loss is significantly reduced. But at the same time, even if we don't do that, we need to look at the overall DC loss ratio. at the system level, which is shown in the second table, where as a DC system efficiency 1 and R efficiency 2. So which results will give us the total PR ratio. So this shows that actually, even if we use a 4 mm² cable, the 210 module is only lower by 0.08%. But once we use a 6 mm² cable, actually our efficiency becomes higher by about 0.23% as compared to the 182. So next is also on the transportation. So the modules are big. Are we able to transport them safely and also optimize the space inside the 40-foot high-cube container? So you can see here on the left is the conventional 2-stack horizontal packing. So on the right will be our vertical placement packing on the Vertex module. So this is how it will look like inside a 40-foot high-cube container. So you can see that although the pallets per container is reduced, but because of the higher power bin, the total power per container is actually increased. At the same time, we are also providing this assistant tool to help our customers unload the modules safely and also unpack the modules at site, so that we can lean the module towards the assistant tool to make it stable, and then after which the operators or the workers on site can remove the module one by one and carry it to the installation area. So another issue is also commonly highlighted is whether with these high current modules, can they work with the major inverter suppliers? Okay. So you can see for central inverter, there's no problem. We just need to upgrade the fuse capacity from 50 amps to 30 amps. Then in terms of string inverter level wise, we have already worked with top major inverter suppliers. So most of them already have the models that is compatible that can be used with Trina ultra high power module. So if you have any doubts or questions, please do contact with Trina also. We have a comprehensive inverter compatibility checking tool, and we can suggest to you which inverter is suitable for your project needs. Then in terms of ground mounted projects, of course, we see the trend of tracker being more and more used in ground mounted projects. So we have also worked with the major tracker suppliers in the market to make sure that our design can fit in with the tracker design to generate the most value for our customer. So lastly, these are just some of the case studies that we have done before, and we have supplied to the market for industrial and small commercial, where the rooftops they have installed using Trina Vertex module. And of course, for utility projects, definitely together with the tracker, you can also use all these high power modules. Okay, with that, I've come to the end of my presentation. Thank you, everyone. No, Petra, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Lim. Thank you for Trina's continuous support. Our next session will be starting at 3:45. Please, all of our attendees been waiting for a while. Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Goldman. Okay, since all our speakers attended, now let's turn to the next session. Thank you for China Solar's continued support, and large-scale solar project is regarded as a significant step to help Malaysia government to achieve the renewable energy transition roadmap and become a decarbonized country. That since has been launched, the LSS project has attracted attention from many ways. Now the LSS 4 is under progress. So how is it going, and how can we overcome the impact of COVID-19 to project development? Next, let's turn to the next panel discussion. How shall LSS 4 projects proceed? Opportunities vs barriers. In this session, we are honored to have Mr. Matthew Gorman, partner of Reed Smith. He will be the moderator of this panel. Gorman has over 25 years of experience, and he advises clients on a broad range of corporate financing and company commercial transactions. And Mr. James Lee, Solution Director from Huawei Smart PV Malaysia. James has been in the solar PV industry for over 10 years and has accumulated rich experience from project development to operating and maintenance. And Mr. Mahadus Rizal, Managing Director from TNB Renewables. Mr. Mahadus Rizal is a professional engineer offering vast and diverse experience in renewable energy business development, asset management, short-term electricity and generation planning, and long-term generation expansion planning, design, installation, testing, and exact. And Mr. Davis Chon, Group CEO of SolarVest Holding Berhad and President of MPRA Malaysia. Mr. Davis Chon, he leads the agency of the oversaw of the company's strategic development from an SME to a public listed company in KLSE ASIC market. He's well networked and successful in implementing strategic commercial plans for solar market in Malaysia. And Mr. Nirampal Singh, General Manager from Energy Solutions APAC from BayWa. Mr. Nirampal Singh started his renewable energy development journey through the development of rural electrification, solar hybrid mini grids in Sarawak, Malaysia, including launching a local program of the state, and continues his pace to CNI development in Singapore for the Solar Nova 2 program. Also for our attendees, please be free to use the Q&A box if you have any technical issues or relevant questions to our speakers. Okay, now let's welcome Mr. Matthew Gorman.
Thank you, Claire, for the introductions, and welcome everybody to this session, which we will hopefully be a lively discussion of the topic that Claire's just trailed for us. So we don't have a huge amount of time, I think. So I think probably we'll just jump into it. And yeah, so if I could make a start, I mean, I think hopefully, as Claire said, we'll get some audience questions through the chat room, which we can pick up later. But just to get things started, a few questions from me, I think, for the panel. So maybe starting with you, James. We've seen obviously over the last 12 months a big rise in component prices in the solar space. Partly due to the price of the underlying raw materials, polysilicon, aluminium, etc., and then also obviously issues caused by global supply chain disruption through the pandemic. So what would your view be, just look in terms of the prognosis going forward, in terms of how long this situation is likely to prevail?
Yeah, good question. Thank you so much, Matt. And thank you, New Venture, for inviting me over here. I really hope that this discussion session will be like you mentioned. And really what a question to start off with, because I mean, this is literally the question that the entire industry is kind of estimating or trying to really understand where we're headed, because this is really key in terms of the time you're going to deploy projects. You know, everyone's waiting and seeing to see if prices will go down. So let's look at these two issues in a more individually first, and then later in a collective way. for the COVID-19 pandemic, I think that we've seen a lot of reductions. I mean, here in Malaysia alone, I think the most latest statistics is we're about 10,000 cases. That is like 50% from what it was probably just about a month ago. This may have been positively correlated with the vaccination rate of the population too. So, and we see that this is common in other countries as well. I mean, in the UK, they're treating this as a endemic now. And as more countries adopt kind of a point of view, and also with hopefully with the vaccination rate to propel and to assist in this, then the business as usual economic functions and activities can resume. But until such time, I think that we are still seeing that the pandemic will have a somewhat negative impact. As in all things, there's a cycle, but this pandemic really has disrupted that cycle. And so our understanding of where we are in that curve has been totally challenged. So that's why I said that this is a very interesting question to start off with. But I think we are all very positive, seeing what other countries are going through. And we are moving towards an endemic kind of a situation. That would really help in the overall reduction, of course, of the exacerbation of these resources such as aluminum, copper, and so on and so forth, glass and so on. So, I mean, the key question, I suppose, which was right at the end of the tail end of the question is when. It is really anyone's guess, but we really do foresee that next year, at least in the second half of the year, we should see some sort of a stabilization. At least there'll be no longer an increment. Hopefully, we've seen the peak of what is the rise of prices, and really that will start to either taper off and then start to hopefully go back down. But really, that is that is the question of our current predicament right now. So yeah, I hope I hope it addresses what you've really asked, but really it is really really just it's a guesstimate.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, no, thanks, James. No, that's I think we all appreciate guessing, and particularly when the pandemic might end is a thankless task, and one that's been tried so many times already with not much success. But Davis, if I could come to you on that question, anything to add to what James has said?
Hey man, hey, sorry for dialing in late because I was an audience and nobody turned me to become panel, so I just tried to lock into another link. I think that's a question. That's a uncertainty that is bothering everybody in the global, especially renewable energy industry, not actually in Malaysia only. We can see the logistic issues, the uncertainty of the labor supply, the material cost, the raw material cost increase. That's not what we can control. It's a global supply chain issue. So I think what we can control is just we try to minimize the risk to mitigate things through project management method. That hopefully we monitor it, and then we're going to work very closely with the authority. I think that's not the normal situation right now. Versus in the past that we carry on 2 years COD period and all this. This time is really something different that versus previously. Versus LSS1, LSS2, LSS3 is different challenges. The government shut down the country or states, no movement. So a lot of things that we can't do, and that affect the labor supply as well. And then those out of control is the cost of materials and logistic costs. So we will need to monitor together with the asset owner to see how to really keep ourselves updated with the authority in the mitigation plan. That's what we can do as an APCC.
Okay, no, thanks. That obviously sounds sensible, and I mean, yeah, working together obviously with all of the stakeholders is probably a key thing. I think that we all recognise. I mean, just moving on. I mean, one of the things obviously is that in any event the delivery, the sort of commissioning dates for a lot of these projects are at the earliest end 22 going into 2023. I mean, just coming to you, Nirampal, I mean, given those timeframes, do you see, is this all, we are worrying about something too much at this stage, or are we right to be concerned?
Yeah, Matt, generally, I think it's a process, and as Davis also put it, Malaysia has kind of a mature system already for executing projects. Even EPCs are fairly mature. They are aware they can mitigate some of these issues. But again, I think the government has to also kind of take a flexible stance. In some countries, they have passed what is called the COVID Act. And I think for Malaysia especially, there is an impact to the building and construction industry where generally an extension of time is allowed for such a pandemic. It's a scale which obviously no one has kind of gone through it. There's no past experience, and just getting back on stream would entail time. So time is basically the factor, but put it against factors like inflationary pressure, shortage of manpower, skill sets, and so on, then you get a whole bunch of other questions or other possible risks that might crop up. There could be also changes in structures, contracting structures, because essentially, I mean, you might have engaged with a particular EPC, but bearing in mind the current situation, depending on how strong that particular company is, they may or may not be able to execute the full spectrum of the contract, and then that's also kind of a risk to completing a COD in time. So essentially, where we are today, I think in the LSS program is that we've seen quite a few of the bid winners that have already approached a point where they are into the financial close, and they are getting into a bidding stage with the EPC companies, and you see that more notably the larger ones are coming in and as the bid winners, and some of them have even taken the stance of executing certain parts of the contract themselves, and this is again back to who won the contracts, right? You see that across the board, there are a few companies that are first-time winners. There are a few companies that obviously are public listed, but then again, if you kind of look at their track record and understand the business nature, and some of them are in construction themselves. So I mean, this might help mitigate the issue, but there are several other factors. But again, at this point in time, I think everyone will probably be working very hard at trying to mitigate and close any risk factors that might come out. Yeah. It's still early stage, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. No. Good. I think that's good. Good sense in terms of where we're heading, and just coming to you, Yusrizal, anything to add on that?
Thanks, Matt. By the way, you can call me Yus. It's easier.
Okay.
So okay, I echo similar statement with Davis and Nirampal, and we do see it's more challenging than the previous 3 rounds. I mean, we've had experiences on the first 2. We didn't succeed in round 3, but now we came back for round 4. So one of the challenge is the pricing. Obviously, the module price has increased quite a bit from the time when we put in the tariff. So there has been a few adjustments that we need to make, and we decided to somehow restructure some of the contract arrangements. So that results to us being able to optimize some of the costs. Further, I think we do have strategic relationship or strategic partnerships with suppliers, the OEMs, and that also helps quite a bit for us to be able to have a bit more flexibility in terms of the costing arrangement, payment arrangements, especially. So we when it goes down to this, then you have to think more than double, right? So everything needs to be working. So we are glad. I think we've found the light at the end of the tunnel. But obviously, I think we are also looking at potential further optimization and savings during execution, as mentioned by Davis. I think that's it for now.
Okay. No, that's helpful. Thank you. And Davis, I mean, just out of interest, I mean, it's not something I've seen covered in what I've been reading about the about what's been happening, obviously with pricing and everything, but I mean, and the bids. But you know, is there any sense? I mean, does anyone have any sense about to what extent any of the bidders that were successful have managed to lock in their, you know, the pricing of the equipment, you know, as part of their, you know, their bid? Because obviously, I would imagine that makes a huge difference, right? If back in March you've already got a fixed price, but I don't know how realistic that is to expect anyone to have achieved.
As we know, the P1, P2, we have 30 winners, and of course, to lock in the price, it always depends on when the owner is picking up the right timing to sign the contracts and everything. As far as I know, as far as our contracts and our things, we haven't fixed it yet. I do heard that some of there are players, there are owners in the market that they already fixed some of the panel contracts. If I'm gonna put up a guess, that I think it's still very minority asset owners that put up the contract, because everybody is still looking around and trying to negotiate. And I think with the 2022 end of 2022 COD, probably we still have a little bit time to negotiate. But I think more to maybe early first half of next year, then that will be slowly everything will be locked down, because shipment issues still remain a concern. If for the 2022 year-end COD projects, I would say that it is they need to book their order maybe the latest is early of next year. So maybe even Q4 they need to do it. So that's the timing that I think everybody is looking at.
Yeah. Okay. Nirupal, you're nodding there. You would agree with Davis? It's unlikely that many people have managed to be that well planned ahead.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I mean, if you kind of trace back to the period where LSS started, just kind of a month or two before that, it was, you know, the worst period of COVID, and most of the economies were shut down. And I think if you ask Davis as well, you know, PV pricing was in the range of 20 cents or even sub 20 cents, and that is some sort of a kind of a false indicator. But you know, generally, then it started to creep up towards the LSS closure. But I guess the view is that everyone thought that it could go down further, and it's kind of a bet, right? Obviously, prices have gone up significantly. There's been shortages of components, raw material, manufacturing. Not only that, but it's also worsened by the fact that China has kind of stepped up in commitments towards labor as well as towards climate change, and that has, you know, kind of brought a big impact on manufacturing of PV. I think the struggle would be to renegotiate contracts, or even if those that were lucky enough to lock it in, to kind of, you know, keep that on stream for delivery, which should happen in the next 12 months. But again, whether that view is accepted or not, it again depends on the relationship that you have with your supplier, the manufacturers as well, and whether they trust that, you know, it's a commercial decision that they want to take forward. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag. I don't know of anyone that has basically locked in prices, but I'm sure, you know, quite a few of them wish that they had, knowing the current situation. But it is dynamic, and it's dynamically changing. So the hope is also that pricing would stabilize to the point where we can execute good projects and deliver them well. A lot of manufacturers are also speeding up, in lieu of the pricing moving up and raw materials, they are kind of speeding up the launch of the new power classes and trying to also optimize BOS in that regard. So I think that there could be a balance, and generally the market is also at a point where those in procurement understands that fact, and they would probably have a kind of a balanced view.
Yeah, I mean, always first mover to try to close the deal to start the engine, so everybody else will start to close the deal.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I guess one of the things that's obviously been a key driver in the solar space in the last X number of years has been the speed of developments and improvements in modules, right? So I guess locking in a supply, long term, when the products are evolving so rapidly, and so I guess it might be counterintuitive to some point. But just moving on then. So I mean, obviously it's well known that the tariffs that were bid in LSS4 were ranging from sort of 17 cent a kilowatt hour up to, I think it was 24, 25. I mean, yours, coming back to you, is it too simplistic to think that those with the higher tariff bids are going to be the real winners in this scenario?
It's a bit hard to I mean, on that basis, definitely they'll get more in terms of revenue because the tariffs are higher. But it goes back to each and everyone's appetite, risk appetite, and also returns appetite. So perhaps they'll get more money, but it depends actually. I mean, the way we monitor this is actually through what you call return expectations, IRR. So for us, so long that we are able to execute the project, complete it on time or earlier with cost savings, and able to achieve the energy yield target, then we are satisfied. So it's as simple as that for us. But obviously in the current situation, having higher tariff would put you in a better position perhaps in terms of securing the modules to make sure that you are able to meet your returns and you are able to achieve your targeted returns for the project. So I think the higher you are in a better position, but not necessarily. If you are still meeting whatever the targets that you set beforehand, then I think you are good to go.
So if I understood what you said there at the last point correctly, what you're saying, I think, is that not only do you have, with a higher tariff, not only do you have obviously a higher income potential in terms of or at least your cost to income ratio is potentially wider and can therefore absorb more of the pain, as it were, that may come from these pricings. But you think, if I understood you correctly, you're saying you think suppliers, if they're looking at who to give constrained supply to, might be looking at a bidder at 24 cents, saying, well, the chances of them paying us back, or giving them credit is a better bet than someone who's at 18.
Exactly. Yeah. Perhaps. Yeah. You can look at it from that way. But another portion which is also important in there is the cost elements, and it differs from one developer to the other, and your ability, and perhaps for us, that's why we thought for solar especially, it's the volume game. The more plants you have, the more projects you have, the better positioning you are. So that's also another component that perhaps we need to be aware of.
Okay, thanks. And James, just coming back to you, any thoughts on this one? Yes, we can.
Good.
Hello, Mr. James. Yeah, it seems that I can hear you from my side. So anybody can hear us?
All good.
We can hear him.
Okay.
All good. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, we still hear you.
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Hi, James. Hi. Hi, James. It seems like we can't hear you, and also, and the attendees cannot hear you either.
That's weird.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, it's strange. We can all hear it.
We can
But
hear
Matt, you should ask, has
Now it's
James
better.
locked in any order?
And now it's now better. No. It seems some people can hear you, but some of them can't hear you.
What sort of algorithm you have there, James? Okay. Yeah. Right.
Okay, well, while James is doing that, I mean, just thinking ahead then, I mean, you know, one of the things we've seen in the Malaysian market over the recent years is quite a number of different tax and incentives in the renewable energy sector. We've also seen on the finance side, you know, green finance initiative and the like. I mean, Nirampal, you know, just on that, I mean, do you think these are going to be key kind of components of how the market progresses over and some of these projects go ahead?
Yeah, and I think the recent 12th Malaysian plan has some elements of sustainable development. It's not just for solar, but you know, across the board. And one aspect of that is also to consider the banking sector and to ensure that the banking sector remains positive on the outlook for solar and green investments, which includes, you know, attractive lending rates to the market as well. So there's probably the most of the local banks that have participated in various programs, and they have come to a certain point where they are matured enough to even issue larger bonds and facilitate bridging. But again, I mean, in terms of the finance rate, it depends on risk as well. Each project might have a kind of a tag on the different risk component. So that might be a driver. On your question of tax incentives, the government has basically extended the previous incentives into 2023, and then again, I think it would come to a point where they would be seen to still continue to support the sector. I believe that, you know, like any other nation out there, because of the higher commitments on SDGs and ESGs by corporates, they would be looking at some incentives to offset further private investments in this segment as well. So there are some of the larger players, for example, property developers and so on, that are keen and interested. And I'm sure that the government is kind of open towards probably a segment related or a sector related support in that regard.
Okay, no, that's that's good. I mean, I think it's as I say, I think I think most people would say some of the incentives in Malaysia have been very helpful in getting to where we are today in terms of growth in the renewable space, not just solar, but primarily through solar, I guess. So I think it's good to see that the KL is looking at that, pushing that further forward in order to help some of the industry players, with that. Yours, any thoughts on incentives and financing?
I think in terms of financing now, I mean, due to the COVID situation, and the rates are, I think, better than before. It's just a matter of how low can we secure, which is indirectly it balance off a bit, although not everything. It balance off a bit the increase in module price and the rest of other situations. However, I think going forward, we are looking at various ways to further innovate or having an innovative solutions for financing. It still can be improved, we think. And other than that, I don't see much difference. I mean, in terms of what we get from the bankers, this is one of the perhaps lowest that we can ever get, I think, in general.
Okay, fair enough. So just moving away then from me to some of the questions that have come through in the on the chat from the audience. We've got one here, somebody asking, given the issues that we've been talking about, what do people think is the future for, is the government going to press ahead with LSS5 and beyond, and if so, what kind of capacity sort of awards can we expect, or are they going to do a big U-turn and try a different model? I don't know, anyone who wants to take that one?
James, you want to test your mic?
Good idea, Davis.
Sure, yeah. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good,
have you heard anything about LSS5?
Wow. LSS5, yeah, I from what I gather is that it's definitely there. But in terms of the mechanics of it and how they're going to do it, it's going to be quite it's anyone's guess per se. In terms of the projections of further beyond LSS5, remains to be seen, of course. I believe that Malaysia still has a very high commitment that we have to, and target that we have to reach. So if we're really going to put our back into it, definitely there needs more programs like this. And of course, let's not forget the net energy metering as well, to kind of like supplement the move towards renewable energy, because I think large scale alone may not be something that everyone would adopt or would feel as a big contributing factor, because not everyone can participate to it. So when you have your rooftops as well, then everyone collectively we as a nation are working towards this target. So there's a buy-in from every party and every segment. So I believe that in terms of our projections, yes, definitely there should be. But for LSS5, as far as I know, it is there. LSS6 and beyond is a question. Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much what I have so far. You had anything else in the grapevine?
And another question that's related to that, and one which is of interest to me, as as someone who's seen clients keen to participate, is I mean, obviously LSS4 was kind of it was kind of well publicized that it was closed to foreign investment, right? Primarily, at least directly, in terms of the bidders. do we think LSS5, when it happens, is going to be open to foreign investors?
I don't know. I think they will still continue the policy, the localization policy. That's what we think, that because in fact I think you will agree, and we have a lot of local investor and local energy player that are willing to invest in energy plant, and I do think that the ministry will think the same and probably continue this local policy, and right. that will be expected.
Yeah, just to add on a bit, I think the reason why LSS4 was limited to local players was the nature of the project itself. They wanted it to be as part of economic stimulus program for the locals. Yeah. So I'm assuming, considering the COVID situation, which has yet to be fully settled, and the need to move the local economy, so very, very likely, I also see that will be the same.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but let's look at the bright side. The LSS is coming, and probably 5, 6. But with the RMK12 yesterday, you can see that there's some hint or some news on the third-party access. So if the third-party access coming and enabled in Malaysia, so it's opened up the door. Anybody can invest to have a direct PPA with any the PPA taker. So that will eventually open up the door for the foreign investor.
Yeah, and I think third-party access is also important and critical, because then it allows corporates, the larger corporates, to come in and co-invest early as well. Look at Vietnam, for example. DPPA in Vietnam, it's already into a policy stage. Obviously, the rollout is delayed a little bit, but you can basically see that corporates are lining up for energy demand, and I think this is the next step. Even in Indonesia, there was kind of some hints about that. So if Malaysia were to progress and kind of be one step ahead, we were always a step ahead in terms of policy and programs, because it's kind of nicely laid out. And I think this is something that should be introduced relatively quickly in Malaysia, at least as a pilot, and then I think we can gauge the success and assume and kind of decide how that kind of flows. That could be also a little bit to the point of national recovery, because again, a lot of the foreign companies are also deciding on countries where they would like to invest in, and they would probably pick choices that are kind of more green or more sustainable in that sense. So definitely one that we're looking out for.
Yeah, I mean that kind of links to another question we had through the chat, which was I mean, we talked a bit about incentives and that, but do you guys see sort of any areas where perhaps regulation or change in regulation could really help in terms of the Malaysian sort of solar landscape? James?
Sorry, I missed your question there, and
I was just saying, I mean, Nirupal was talking about third-party access, and we've talked a little bit about incentives, but one of the audience posed a question as to whether or not, are there any areas that the panel see as sort of key where a regulatory change would be, a real, sort of, or an obvious area where regulatory change would help the sector to, to continue to flourish?
Of course, this is like the barrier to project development, right? So, I mean, if regulations are a lot more friendly towards the development of renewable energy, that would help the developers to also reduce their cost structure and cost factors. When you talk about in terms of even from the land matters and so on and so forth, we are talking about maybe even potentially the land assessments and so on and so forth. And there's in this area as well, where it could actually assist in promoting the investment to renewable energy, especially with regards to land cost. So I think in that aspect, certain policies could be enhanced or could also be created just specifically promote the investments towards RE in the various different at the state level and obviously at the local council level and local government level. So in all these different areas, of course, if there was enhancements to or at least to provide certain exclusions, clauses and so on and so forth, because we're talking about maybe 21 years of PPA, and then what happens with the land thereafter, right? And if you do a land conversion, then the cost is going to be incurred, and then the landowner will be stuck with a land conversion of maybe an industrial state instead of a plantation. And it does have certain parts where perhaps they could come up with certain policies to help with this kind of a scenario. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else on regulation?
I think we all agree that renewable energy is a very policy-driven industry, right? So to have more policy is a must to open up, to make the pie bigger. It's not just rooftop, NEM, Salco, LSS, to have more different projects. Example, in here we have NEDA projects, then we want TPA with direct PPA with the large corporations. And of course, if we do P2P trading, there will be more rooftop and any other empty space that we can install solar panels. And that's what we want. But when you have new model projects, then you need to have some regulations to manage it, right? That's what is the difficult part. And we need to have changes and enhancement all the time.
I think one of the key, another interesting aspect is, of course, this cross-border potential, and I think that as we look at like the recent tender that was put up by Singapore, these are opportunities and avenues for us to really look at new perspective and how we can, as an industry in the country, to be able to our energy to our neighbors. Yeah, so I think that the opportunities are quite present. It's just to like what David said, when you have something new, you have to have something to govern it, to ensure compliances as well as to ensure the movement between the two countries. Now we're now going into a regional kind of thing. Yeah, so that would be another enhancement to this whole entire industry.
Just picking another question from the audience. So someone asked another anonymous question, but if someone is asking, if we continue with a sort of liberalized or more liberalized model going forward, do you guys think that sort of sensible wheeling charges will be a thing that can be negotiated in order to take advantage of that kind of change in the structure?
Perhaps if I can chip in here, I think the basis of the charges that is being imposed is supposed to relate to the cost recovery that has been spent. So I'm not sure, since even right now, I don't think we have an idea in terms of the wheeling charges. But whatever it is, I think rightfully it should reflect the cost that has been incurred, as well as addressing or how, because indirectly we are socializing that cost to the rest of other users, and what's best to address that situation. So in many jurisdictions, there's been additional charges for the participants to compensate to other non-solar users, for example. So that could be considered. But anyhow, I mean, the basic idea is basically to ensure recovery of whatever cost that has already been spent, and to be fair, not to socialize the cost to people who are not gaining benefit or direct benefits from that. That's the normal idea to address this. Perhaps just to add a bit more on the RMK12 and the potential carbon tax issue that will be imposed, considering, probably most of us here heard these few weeks, Singapore is very, very keen for another cross-border initiative. So I do believe, I'm not sure, perhaps the government will be looking at this. And at the same time, I think probably, there's also a need to, or an intention to pull in or to attract similar investors, the likes of RE100 companies, the data centers over to Malaysia. So that'd be very interesting to see how, we are going to balance off that demand for Singapore, as well as wanting to attract those customers here to Malaysia. So that'll be an interesting one, I think.
Thanks, Yus. No, that's a good point. I mean, I think there's definitely a big opportunity for both Singapore, which is where I'm based, and Malaysia to cooperate on this, sort of on a number of these areas. Listen, I think we're running out of time here, so I think probably, unfortunately, we probably need to draw the discussion to an end. So on that basis, I'd just like to say a big thank you to the panelists today for sharing their expertise and their thoughts with us, to Nirampal, to Davis, to James, and to yours. Thank you all for your time and your contributions. Thank you to the audience for some interesting questions. We hope you've found it an interesting session. I think we've heard that some of these issues we've been talking about are not just Malaysian issues; they're industry-wide issues. So we shouldn't get too fixated on that. I think we've also heard people that in terms of some of the pricing issues with components and things. I think it's people need to be flexible. Government needs to be flexible. The various players and stakeholders need to be flexible. It's a common problem, but I think if people work together, then they can, then I think everyone can work together to solve the issue. Nirampal mentioned relationships. I think in these kind of situations, it's always good to to make sure those relationships are strong and to work together. And then we've heard about ESG and some of the impacts that's having on the landscape. And then to close, we talked a little bit about some of the regulatory issues, third-party access, potential cross-border, import and export, which I think is a very exciting, area of the market. So, as I say, thanks to everybody. Thanks again to Near Venture for organising, and it's been a great session. I've enjoyed hosting it for you, and I look forward to the next occasion when we can all talk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Yus, and thank you, Nirampal. Thank you, James. Thank you, bye.
Thank you, Nirampal. Thank you, Davis Chon. Thank you, Yusuf, and thank you, Mr. James Lee. Great thanks to all of you to give our great comments and insight sharing of the LS4 project in the Malaysia. So great thanks to you again. The next session will be the plenary speech by Mr. Vaslin from Malaysia Country Manager from Anti-Technology. So it will be starting in 5 minutes. Thanks for waiting for a while. Thank you.
Yes, Claire, can you hear me, Claire?
Yes, Mr. Leslie.
Finally, yeah.
Is you? Okay. Please open your video, turn on your video.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, it looks great. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
So, dear all, we will turn to the next session. I will show my screen. Yes. Yeah. So now we would like to give the microphone to our next speaker, Mr. Vance Lim, Malaysia Country Manager from Ante Technology. He is a Sustainable Energy Development Authority certified grid-connected photovoltaic designer, and he is also a professional technologist under Malaysia Board of Technologists. Mr. Vance has rich experience in solar industry in terms of designing financial and technical aspects, and he will then talk about how much power generation can anti-tracking system increase compared with the fixed mounting system. Let's welcome.
Okay.
So Mr. Lim, you can share your screen.
Yep, I'm sharing my screen now. Can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So let me start. Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I wish and hope you all are doing well and staying safe during this pandemics. And it's my great honor to make a speech on behalf of Antai. So I'm Vince, a local representative of Antai as a Malaysia country manager. And I would like to share with you more details on what is the difference in production between fixed type system and the tracking system in Malaysia later. Before that, please allow me a few minutes to introduce who is Antai to you. Okay, maybe you are curious that who is Antai and why we could produce reliable tracking product. So let me introduce and provide some facts. Maybe some of you thought the solar mounting system is so simple and always behind the PV panels. It's just like the ants, small and invisible. But in fact, it's full of technology, strong and significant to support the entire solar power plant. So I'm going to express you who is Antai. With 800 employees, including 80 number of R&D engineers, Antai could provide the latest technology of fixed solar mountings and tracking system to you. Until now, Antai have shipped close to 15 gigawatt product all over the world. We are #1 market share in Japan, #1 supplier in Vietnam and Australia distribution markets. Antai having own factory and 4 production base to produce both steel and aluminum products. Besides that, Antai owns 2 R&D centers with 80 engineers that are highly educated, and 1/3 of them has postgraduate and above. With more than 15 years R&D working experience, Antai holds 85 national patents and top technical innovations, providing leading technical solutions for many domestic and foreign solar farm projects. So as you can see, in order to provide a better support and after-sales service to our customer, Antai has global layout to provide better local support, including Japan's, Australia, Singapore, Vietnam branch, and local representative in Malaysia, Philippines, and Brazil. So as I mentioned earlier, Antai having 4 production bases. Here is the production base in Fujian, Jiangsu, Tianjin, and Indonesia. The annual capacity up to 15 gigawatt in aluminum product and 13 gigawatt is steel product. So what I'm trying to say here is Antai was ready for future development with this production base on hand now. So Antai has 15 years brand history. The total shipment is close to 15 gigawatt up to date. including 3.5 gigawatt in last year, 2020, and we have shifted more than 5 gigawatt in Japan, around 3 gigawatt in Australia, and 3.5 gigawatt in China, and about 2 gigawatt in Southeast Asia. So Antai R&D not only develop structure design, we also develop high performance aluminum alloy with special casting formula. You can see that Antai aluminum material in tensile strength has 20% higher strength than national standard and other suppliers. The yield strength of traditional aluminum alloy national standard is 130 megapascal, and the yield strength of Antai high performance alloy is more than 260 megapascal, which is twice of the international standard. The ratio of different elements is unique formula of Antai, which can realize material solutions for various environments conditions such as strong acid, strong alkaline, and rainy and the seawater. So Antai design product based on 25 years usage. We provide a strong and reliable product to ensure you won't worry about Antai mounting in the next 25 years. So Antai having a full range of mounting structure product from a mounting structure from rooftop, including residential, CNI project, carport, BIPV, and LSS product. On the other hand, based on different site condition, Antai engineering team will propose a more suitable mounting structure based on customer need and site requirements. Here is some of the Antai fixed type mounting project reference. These are high profile project by Antai. There is still plenty of normal project that I'm not going to mention all of them here. So from what you can see in the slide, 32 megawatt in Mongolia in this desert area, 26 megawatt at Japan at high inclination area, and 50 megawatt Vietnam project just beside the sea. So what I mentioned earlier, Antai can propose and design according to customer need and site condition. So for Antai tracking system with the AI technology is very convenient for client to do O&Ms and monitoring. Antai has own software and monitoring system on tracker, which involve plenty of sensor like the ultrasonic wind sensor, float sensor, GPS sensor, XE sensor, and so on. So proud to mention here, with our excellence in-house R&D team, which bring Antai free software copyright. Furthermore, Antai having 65 certification and testing, including the CPP, UL, TOV, DMV, and so on. I would like to talk a bit more on this CPP. I would like to share with all Antai tracker system approved by the CPP wind tunnel test, including the static structure, instability, and dynamics analysis. Especially Antai use 2.6 meter large size PV module for the CPP test to ensure Antai tracker with large PV module are reliable and stable under the strong wind. Okay, now it's come to my main topic of today. I believe all of you here are aware that Malaysia is located close to equatorial line, and the thin angle is not that much compared to other countries. And some people will ask, what is the effects of the tracker system compared to the fixed type system and its generations? So based on this question, we carry out a PVC simulation based on 3 locations in Malaysia, which is Northern Region Kedah, Southern Region Johor, Central Region Selangor. So we are using a 1 megawatt solar farm project for this study, and I will show you the difference of the solar production by using a tracker system and the fixed type system in my following slide. Firstly, we start from the Kedah area, Northern Region. So we're doing this simulation using 1 megawatt solar farm. And you can see the power generation for the fixed type system is about 1,475 megawatt hour per year. But tracker system can give you more, which is 1,717 megawatt hour per year in Northern Region Kedah. So in this simulation, tracker system could increase at least 16.42% power generation than the fixed type mounting system in Johor, in Kedah. So this extra power generation will help in shorten your ROI and increase your IRR in LSS project. Here you can see the power generation in each month for the Northern Region Kedah area. The red color is representing Antai tracking system and the blue color is the fixed type system. During April to July, the tracker system increased more than 20% productions and averagely bring you about 16% more production in yearly for northern region, Kedah area. And the next one is the data for southern region. For 1 megawatt solar farm project as well, you can see the fixed type system only produced 1,345 megawatt hour, but the tracker system produced 1,559 megawatt hour power production per year in this southern region, Johor area. On this simulation, the tracking system could increase at least 15.84% power generation than the fixed type mounting system. We almost confirm the IRR and the ROI could be improved if you choose the tracking system instead of fixed type system in LSS project. So here you can see the power generation in each month for this Johor region. Also the same, the red color is tracking system and the blue color is fixed type system. During May to August, the tracker system increased more than 20% in production in this Johor region and averagely bring you about 15.84, as I mentioned just now, more production in southern region, Johor area. So now let's come to my last region, which is Selangor. For the 1 megawatt solar farm project in this region as well, you can see the power generation by fixed type system is only 1,329 megawatt hour, and the tracker system, which is 1,520 megawatt hour in central region Selangor. So this is at least 14% more power generation if compared to the fixed type mounting system. This extra generation definitely can contribute to your ROI and IRR by using a tracker system in LSS project. So here you can see the power generation in each month for this central region, Selangor area. Also the same, red color is tracking system and the blue color is the fixed type system. During May to July, the tracker system can bring you more than 20% in power generations and averagely bring you about 14% more production in yearly in this region. Okay, in summary, for northern region, Kedah area, 16% increase, and the southern region, Johor area, about 15% increase, and the central region, Selangor area, about 40% increase. So based on this data from our study and the simulation for tracker system in Malaysia, tracker system indicating impressive result, and you'll get more generation, which lead to shortened ROI, higher IRR, result in the lower LCOE price by using a tracker system in Malaysia. So I will talk a bit more on LCOE in my following slide. Okay, as we are aware, the fixed type system with a single facial or mono modules was commonly used in Malaysia. In this slide, you can see the comparison of 1 megawatt project by using a tracker system with the bifacial PV modules, the fixed type system with monofacial module, and the tracker system with monofacial modules. So we fixed the AC and DC capacity in this simulation, which is 777 kilowatt in AC and 1 megawatt in DC. So we use 21 years data in these calculations because the PPA's period in Malaysia normally is 21 years. So along 21 years, the production of the tracker bifacial and single facial system produced about 16.32% and 10.66% more in production, respectively. The average annual output along 21 years for the tracker system bifacial is about 1,501 megawatt hour and 1,274 megawatt hour for the fixed type single facial, and wow, the 1,418 megawatt hour for the tracker single facial. So in terms of OPEX, as you can see, the total project cost is higher if using a tracker system, about 8%. This is due to the bifacial panels, and the tracker price is a bit high compared to the fixed type or the single facial modules, as well as the OPEX in O&M cost increased about 5% to take care of tracker system and bifacial PV modules. But after considering the APAC, CAPEX and OPEX, we are using the 5% discount rate in our net present value calculations. The extra production here overall bring down the LCOE price from 0.0297 USD per kilowatt to 0.02 USD per kilowatt. So this is 7.9% deduction in LCOE price if using a tracker system with the bifacial modules. So if we comparing the tracker system with the single facial modules and the fixed type single facial modules, it is 3.18% deduction in LCOE's price. Okay. And moreover, I would like to highlight on this anti-algorithm. With anti-algorithm used in the tracker system, give you more power about 0.5 to 2% compared to the traditional algorithms. Above table show you the difference on anti and traditional algorithm. So as shown in this table, this is summary of comparison in terms of price, EPC cost, power generations, maintenance between tracker and fixed type system. As you can see, the cost of anti-tracker is about 0.07 to 0.11 USD per watt, depending on the design. Wow, the fixed type system is about 0.04 to 0.06 USD per watt. So if you notice that the EPC cost, EPC price is higher, yes, you are right. If using a tracker system, the EPC cost will be higher compared to the fixed type mounting system. But remember, bear in mind, mounting structure just a smaller portion in entire EPC cost. Comparing to PV panels, comparing to inverters, the mounting structure is a smaller portion. So as I presented in my previous slide on LCOE, in long term, with additional power productions, we will still get benefit from this tracker system. So in anti-tracker system, we offer 5 types of tracker to fulfill customer requirements. Each type of tracker model having a different property in length, in tracking degree, in tracking range, drive mode, and so on. Anti offer 5 different models on tracker system, which namely N surface, Thai simple, N cloud, Thai universal, and Thai space. I will go through it by each model in my following slide quickly. So this is, we start with N surface, it's a single piece system, length up to 140 meters and having a tracking degree about 50 degrees. And following by a Thai simple single piece system as well. And this is the most economic model that we have, the length up to 90 meters and having a tracking degree about 60 degrees. And following by Thai space single piece system as well, the longer tracking system model that we have up to 240 meters and the tracking range about 60 degrees. And now it's come to 2P system and we call it N cloud, length up to 70 meters, about 50 degrees in tracking range. And the last one is Thai universal, is a 2P system as well, length up to 70 meters, but the tracking range is a bit more, which is 60 degrees. Okay. Antai also having a self-developed SCADA and on-M platform, which enable customer and end user to do smart monitoring. The advantage of our monitoring platform include sales inspection, warning alarm, and protection mode during critical weather. I would like to highlight over here. In anti-tracker system, you no need purposely to look for the power supply. The tracker system can work with either DC or AC supply. You can directly use the DC power from the solar panel array or the AC power supply from the output from the inverter. So now it's come to my last section of my sharing. It's about anti-production and on this fixed type and tracker system. So as I mentioned earlier, Antai owns an aluminum extrusion factory and a steel fabrication factory. Antai has 35 independent production lines with the ability to complete entire production process of aluminum structure, which in casting, extrusions, aging, anodization, spraying, and packaging by its own force to fully control product quality and make Antai product perfect at every step. So with our strict control of raw material, our own factory control the whole process and test the contents of elements such as silicon, copper, magnesium, zinc, titanium to ensure that each product have the expected tensile strength, yield strength, and hardness to meet the actual engineering on the standard used for insulation. Furthermore, Antai owns 4 automatic processing factory equipped with advanced equipment such as automatic assembly machine, automatic punching machines, ultrasonic cleaning machine, and automatic saw grinding machine to construct an efficient production line with almost zero error. Besides that, Antai also owns 100% fully automatic welding spinal power production line, which can tailor the length and depth according to customer need. The average wall coated thickness of our HDG, the hot dip galvanized steel, is 80 micrometer in our production. Lastly, strict control on quality. 6 quality inspections are controlled through the entire process to ensure the standard value of high performance alloy is stable at 20% higher than the national standard. The 5 major testing procedures in our laboratory, including through resistance testing, salt spray testing, film thickness testing, surface treatment component analysis, and spectrum analysis. In addition, Antai also perform third-party inspection on regular basis. So on Antai tractor system, the same thing happening here. Entire process from design, testing to shipments done by Antai in-house team to ensure customer satisfaction by using Antai product. And I would like to mention over here, Antai not only focus in sales, we are also very aggressive in technical support. As shown in this slide, our support coverage divided in 3 sections: pre-sales, in-sales, and after-sales. In pre-sales, we offer client site survey and technical analysis. In sales, our support team can provide a design drawing within 12-hour time. And after sales, we can assign a project manager on site to guide on the installation if necessary. Okay, before I end my sharing for today, I would like to highlight once on Antai quality and warranty. Antai having in-house team in entire supply chain from raw material, R&D, engineering, manufacturing, logistics until after-sales service to ensure good quality and reliable product to customer. Due to above advantage, we can offer a longer warranty period compared to others competitor. Example, for tractor system, we offer 15 years warranty on structural components and corrosion protection, 10 years on mechanical parts, and 5 years on warranty on battery part. So last but not least, I would like to end my slide with an Antai company slogan and video. Expert in hard and core technology for solar mounting and tracking system, like the invisible giant to support entire solar farm. And lastly, for your information, Antai reached its 15 years anniversary by this year, 2021. So Clay will help me to create a video later. And thanks for your kind attention. If you need any information or you have any question, you can just chat to us and just email to us or contact me directly. So we are here for you. Okay, thank you very much. Clay, over to you. Please help me to share the video.
Yes, thanks for Mr. Van Slin's sharing. So now let's enjoy a video from Antai Technologies. I will cut your screen share.
Yes, thanks.
So can you hear the sound?
Yes.
Light. Bring hope to people. We follow the light and run towards where it's aimed. In the way of chasing the light, we take every step with the vision of backbone for the solar world. In the past 15 years, we have repelled the violent sandstorms in the desert and conquered the undulating mountains. We constantly challenge and built global boutique solar power stations with hard work and wisdom. In the past 15 years, we strive to boost the hope of humans through photovoltaic together with our partners across the global. The global cumulative shipment of nearly 15 gigawatts is more than a turning point. It's a starting point. Behind all this is our unremitting innovation and perseverance. innovative R&D, injecting technology strength into each solar power station. Precision manufactured, creating each stable and efficient products. They never stop, always keeping better communication with partners all over the world. Moving forward firmly for 15 years, chasing each sunlight with technology. On-site people will unite the power of tracking sunlight, heading for the next 15 years.
Okay, now thanks for everyone, and thanks Mr. Van Slim. Now let's move to the next session. In the past, rooftop solar projects have also contributed a lot to the installed capacity in Malaysia. Let's go ahead with our next panel, Malaysia rooftop solar, embarrassing a green future with NEM3. NEM3. First, I would like to give our speakers first. Mr. Jack Neelan, partner of Vector Energy Advisory. Jack spent over 20 years in Southeast Asia working with investment banks, consulting firms, and in private equity, where he has focused on investment decision-making in the energy and clean energy sectors. He will be the moderator of this panel. And the next, Mr. Saeed Malik. Saeed Malik joined Petronas in July 12 and 18, in which he has a part of the pioneer team in setting the new energy business in Petronas corporation strategies. And now he's the correct of the head of business development of Petronas New Energy, and is responsible to formulate and lead the BD for clean energy projects, including solar, wind, and other renewable energy. Next, KK Kong, Manager Director from Mako Solar. KK is currently the Manager Director of Mako Solar Malaysia, and he is the Sustainable Energy Development Authority Certified Grid-Connected GCPV Designers. He involves in many commercial and industrial CRA rooftop solar projects. And Mr. Florian Benhout. Florian is on a mission to support the transition towards net zero carbon in Asia. And Symbio is solar PV and distributed energy developed focused on frontier solar PV markets. Now I will hand my mic to Mr. Jack Neelan.
Great, thank you. Great, thank you very much, and welcome everyone to the Malaysia Rooftop Solar Embracing a Green Future with NEM 3.0 webinar session today. You know, I'm very excited to have an opportunity to talk to a great group of panelists about, you know, what's really an interesting and somewhat of a quiet market. You know, Malaysia, in my opinion, gets less attention than many of the other markets in ASEAN, you know, despite having an energy sector that really is the size of the Philippines or larger, and really one of the more interesting booming growing economies. You know, despite this, over the last few years, Malaysia has developed a series of large-scale solar programs under the LSS system, and has come on the radar for solar rooftops under earlier net energy metering programs. You know, around the region, we've seen various countries, particularly Thailand and Vietnam here in India, you know, reach out and try to attract modern carbon conscious, climate aware industries by giving them programs where they can bring on rooftop solar, and these have been extremely successful programs. Both Thailand and Vietnam adding gigawatts of capacity. This is a really good match for Malaysia, as Malaysia has one of the strongest industrial sectors of the region. And so I think it's a really interesting opportunity to see whether these new programs that come up in NEM3 will be able to supercharge and put Malaysia onto the map. I won't spend very much time talking about the program themselves. I'll let the panelists go ahead and do that. I think we have a great group today and a fairly small, tight amount of time. So why don't we jump right into the panelists? I know Claire has given a high-level introduction of each panelist and their background. But why don't I ask each of the panelists to go through one by one and talk about a little bit about themselves, about their company, and about their involvement in the sector today. So why don't we maybe start off at the top with Petronas and Syed Malik? Would you give a quick introduction of yourself?
Right. Thanks, Jack. Can you guys hear me?
We can, yeah.
Right. Okay. Thanks. I'm well, Jack can call me Malik.
Okay, Malik.
Yeah. I'm heading the business development for new energy. Joined Petronas in 2018. Previously from the e-mobility industry, and prior to that I was from the auto industry. I think just a bit on background. I think Petronas, we announced our stepping out strategy out of oil and gas way back in 2017. We announced our first venture into new energy. In 2019, I think Petronas, we announced the establishment of a new business called Gas and New Energy, alongside our upstream and downstream business. New energy was established and been mandated to grow into solar, wind, as well as some new technology like battery storage and so on for both Malaysia and international market. The same year, Petronas announced our new statement of purpose, which is progressive energy and solutions partner, enriching lives for a sustainable future. A key milestone that we have achieved in 2019 is also our acquisition of a company called M+ Solar in India. And that somehow brings us our new venture into providing solar solutions mainly for commercial and industrial customers. And then followed by the same year, we established our Malaysian solar business under the brand name of M+ by Petronas. Now, recently, last year, Petronas announced our net zero carbon emission aspiration to be net zero carbon by 2050. So the need to move into RE is more urgent in this, particularly with regards to having installed solar or other RE technologies within Petronas assets, able to reduce our carbon emissions. So our total portfolio now is around 1 gigawatt completed solar under construction, mainly in India, with customers coming from various industries. In Malaysia, we have nearly about 100 megawatt of capacity installed and also in progress. I think the well-known one is the Tesco installation of Lotus. We have installed, I think, about 15 megawatt total capacity. 13 megawatt for 15 sites all over Peninsular Malaysia. And internally also, I think we have way back in July, we announced our installation in one of the engineering yards in Johor, MMHE. It's about 8.3 megawatt. And we also have in our capacity some of our projects from our feed-in tariff. Way back in 2013 is a 10 megawatt solar farm in Gebeng. And we've installed a few in Surat KLCC, in some of the early petrol stations. I think that now moving forward with our targets to achieve net zero carbon, we are looking to more opportunities internally as well as externally. Looking into potential installation in our Pengerang site in Johor, about 49 megawatt, as well as the significant numbers of petrol stations all over Malaysia. I think we're going to start with the Klang Valley first, with about 70 stations within this year. So that is just to show how we're supporting not just our internal aspiration, we're also last 2 days, we hear the announcement, yesterday, we hear the announcement by the Prime Minister of Malaysia going towards carbon neutrality by 2050. So I think that somehow, I think from what we heard from the previous session today, that there will be a lot of initiative that needs to be developed to support that carbon neutrality by the government by 2050. Our model is basically a PPA model, corporate PPA, or zero capex model that we offer to commercial industrial customers. Of course, we right from day one, NEM 2.0 to NEM 3.0. And internally as well, I mean, of course, NEM Nova is where we're pushing, but as everyone aware, the quota has already finished for NEM Nova. But one of the initiatives internally that we have, we call a program called Homescape, where we allow staff to install solar, special package that we do for staff to install solar at their home. I think we have successfully installed and under installation of nearly 3 megawatt of solar just within the staff alone. And this is under NEM 2.0 as well as NEM right yet. And we believe that it is a good avenue, not just within us, within staff in Petronas, but also for general public to take solar as part of their ways how to reduce electricity, particularly during this current state. So again, just to recap, this is where we believe that Petronas is moving forward. We have a mission with regards to growing the business of new energy outside oil and gas, but most importantly, supporting our net zero carbon aspiration.
Great, fantastic. Thank you very much, Malik. That's an interesting introduction. And I know around the world, companies such as Shell and Total, other oil and gas companies are following or the same path as you are. So it'll be interesting to hear about what you're doing in Malaysia. With that, KK, would you like to give yourself an introduction and start us off?
Hi. Is my sound okay?
I think so.
Okay. Thank you, Jack. Thank you. Hi. How are you, sir? So, and good afternoon, everyone. This is Kong. My name is Kong. Others call me KK. I'm from Mako, MAQO, Mako Solar. So we are a homegrown Malaysia EPC company, specialized in rooftop and also solar farm constructions. So we work with company like Florian and also Malay, where we are the hardcore. We take pride of building quality systems for our clients. So to date, we have done cumulatively more than 200 megas of, we have done a few solar farms for ScarTech, Itramas, and also TNB for solar farm. And as for rooftop, we have done from a small rooftop, to large megawatts level rooftop. And we are quite upbeat with the market sentiment of Malaysia. Even the NEM, Net Energy Metering Program, has been stepped up. The projects is still flowing through this self-consumption mechanism. So, like Malik had mentioned, this our Prime Minister's just announced that we like to achieve net zero carbon by year 2050. That is very exciting news to hear for our market. Yeah. That's all I like to share about myself. Jack, probably you can take this forward.
Great, thank you very much, KK. And so then let's turn to Florian for the final introduction. I know Florian has been really focused on solar rooftops for some time. I know you're on a mission, as you said, to bring carbon reduction to the companies and electricity users of the region, and have been involved in Malaysia for a long time. So why don't we have you wrap up the introductions, please?
Sure. Thank you very much, Jack, and hello everyone on the panel and in the audience. Symbio is focused on a core belief that solar has a strong contribution to make for countries and companies to achieve their carbon emission goals in a future without fossil fuels. And so this is a commitment that we have pursued for the last 10 years in the region. We are developing solar farms in frontier markets, especially including Bangladesh, but also Eastern Malaysia, where we have a project that, despite long delay, is finally getting off to, I hope, a good start. And we're really trying to show companies as well as countries the contribution that solar can make in terms of achieving environmental goals, but at the same time also matching that up with profits and a profitable, sustainable future. Now, when it comes to the rooftop solar business, we have actually just rebranded this under the BECIS brand. So we are a regional provider there in all of Southeast Asia, including China, and we have built over 100 megawatt of projects in all of these countries for companies as diverse as Michelin, for example, and SIG, a packaging company, among a lot of other companies in the region. Really trying to look at not only how they can reduce their energy consumption using rooftop solar, but also helping them chart a course towards a true net zero future for each one of their individual sites, which I think is still a big challenge for each one of the companies, and also for many of the countries that now have made commitments, including Malaysia, which I would like to applaud here. And underline the importance of that announcement. But the individual steps that need to be taken, I think, are still somewhat unclear. And this is really where the implementation and the execution will be critical in terms of being able to achieve this. And coming to the topic today, I think the rooftop solar, the distributed solar opportunity is humongous in most of the countries in Southeast Asia, and can really make a very strong contribution, and often underappreciated contribution, to achieving those goals. The analysis that we have done internally shows that we have around about 5 to 10 gigawatt opportunity in terms of rooftop solar in Malaysia, if all of the commercial and industrial roofs were to be addressed and used for power generation. So this is a very substantial power generation capacity that can make a substantial contribution. Oftentimes those are somewhat ignored in favor of some of the larger projects, the large-scale solar projects, which are better at attracting the headlines, because here we're talking about smaller scale installations that are distributed usually between around 1 megawatt or so in size. And I would really hope for a bit more support in this, because this is a unsubsidized, cost competitive business-to-business opportunity to achieve sustainability goals and also make the industry more competitive in Malaysia. Because I think this is also often a neglected point here, is that if you look at the business world internationally, if you look at multinational companies, all of them have, or many of them have already announced that they will be targeting net zero carbon emissions in the next, let's say, 10 to 20 years, the more aggressive ones within a shorter period of time, and others within a longer period of time. So any country that would like to attract those kind of blue chip companies to set up a manufacturing base need to be able to offer them a vision how they will be able to operate on a net zero carbon emission basis. And obviously the electricity supply plays an important role there, being able to achieve that. So I think from an industrial policy point of view, this is also an important point that I would like to highlight here, and I think is important for everyone to take in consideration, looking at the long-term future of each one of the countries in Southeast Asia which are vying for the business and the factories of those multinational companies.
Great, fantastic, a great introduction. I think we'll really look forward to your views and hearing your thoughts on the Malaysian market. So with that, what I'm gonna do is turn to the panelists and get into the topic. I think we'll try to move fairly quickly because of time. just as we go on, I also did want to note to the audience that we are receiving questions as we go along. I can see a couple come up already. I'll really focus on questions that are really tightly related to the general topic of NEM 3.0 and rooftops in Malaysia. And what I'll do is I'll incorporate those questions as we go along. I don't think we'll have time for a separate Q&A at the end, but please do send your questions in. I'm paying attention to them, and we will ask them and make sure they get covered in the course of the conversation. So in a very entertaining panel that we did on Malaysian rooftops a couple of months ago, I asked KK to start off to give us a perspective as a Malaysian on on NEM 3.0 to catch us up for audience that may not know. And that worked very well. I thought I'd ask KK to do the same thing again. And either KK, if you have the chart of the rates available, you can show that, or Claire at the on the organizer side could show that as well, if you wouldn't mind kicking us off. And I think you may be muted.
Okay. Thanks for showing this. Yeah. So early this year, the governments have launched this NEM Rakyat, means domestic. You know, if you see the Malay words, domestics is Rakyat means the residential for houses of 100 mega, okay, in February this year, okay. They announced this in end of last year and to launch in February this year. So 1st of February is written here, yeah, okay. So, and they give you to offset, means that when you have excess energy, so that excess energy will become your credit and to offset your electricity bill, okay? Offset the power that you purchase from the TNB. In Malaysia, is TNB, okay? So from the electricity company's distribution licensee, okay? For 10 years. After 10 years, the expectation is the battery or whatever systems by then should be very cost effective. Then you might want to store and convert your inverters to a storage base and do self-consumption. Okay, so the offset periods that has been negotiated with TNB was for a period of 10 years. Okay, and it's applied for 4 kilowatt system size for single phase maximum and 10 kilowatt AC for 3 phase. If you use a 1.2 or 1.3 ratio, that would be 12 kilowatt maximum for 3 phase houses. Okay, so you must be your bill must be a domestic account with the distribution licensees. As for the the quota is still available as we speak, but the take-up rate is growing tremendously. And for Nova is a program for commercial. You can see the Malay words, you know, for our foreign friends, you know, you can learn this Malay word, commercial and industry. Okay, so has been offered since 1st of April for 300 mega AC. Okay, and the mechanism is you can roll over for 1 month. If you have excess, after 1 month, if you don't utilize it, it will be forfeited. Okay, so for this and for the extra credit that you generate by the solar that you are not being able to use in the peak, okay, then it will be offset with not your tariff rate, but a system marginal price. In Malaysia, there is a reference rate that is the we call it SMP price, probably hovering around 20 cents. So the electricity per kilowatt hour that you generated extra will be calculated based on this system marginal price. okay, which is roughly about 20 cents as we speak. So, and for that, and there are limitations that every organization can install maximum 5 mega using virtual aggregation method. So, and this is applicable for non-domestic TNB account holder. You can apply for this, okay? So to everyone's surprise, including ourselves, you see, so and the industry, all this quota has been snapped up, you know, recently. So all the 300 mega, imagine 300 mega has been snapped up just for the past few months, you see. So this is really, really exciting. So we are, as an industry, is already knocking the door of the agency and the government, you know, hey, give us more quota for this NEM, okay? So I believe that the governments and the agencies are working on this one. Because solar industries is one of the highest growth industry that will help our economy reviving post-COVID, or the COVID is not going away. So this can be an economic stimulus that will create more jobs and let the money flow within the local economy. So at the center one is called NEM Government. Government means the government, okay, the short form, okay, government, okay. It's also have 100 mega allocation, so it's still ongoing at the moment. So we hope that there are more government agencies that will adopt this renewable energy for this clean program that the Prime Minister have just announced recently to go zero carbon, okay, neutrality. So this is the program that available. On top of this one, like I mentioned, without this one, the industry is still moving with self-consumption. So self-consumption means that you don't have any rollover mechanism. You just have to, we just have to design the right optimum system size based on the consumer consumption pattern. Okay, so this is a very brief introduction about what program is available for the rooftop markets. As for the solar farm, we are expecting the government is going to launch round 5 of the large-scale solar. We call it LSS 5 soon, you know. So stay tuned, guys. Yeah.
Thanks, KK. And then may I ask people to move into a little bit of the second question, which is going to be some of the nuts and bolts of it. But if you could answer one really quick question from the comments. One of the audience asked if you could explain what virtual aggregation is. How does the virtual aggregation of projects work, KK?
Oh, okay. So basically, a corporate entity that have multiple factories around Malaysia, they can actually install at one of the premise, and then if they have excess of the energy, which is if they sell as SMP price, that would be not very favorable to them. At the moment, they are buying, say, 40 cents from TNB, but if there is any excess at only one location, they can only sell out at 20 cents, half the price, for example. So this is actually not favorable to the investors or the NEM adopter, right? So the governments allow you to aggregate the generation and to be virtually used and offset by your other premises physically in another location. So that is how it works. Okay, instead of selling it at SMP price, you can use it within your organization at another physical location. Okay.
Okay, great, fantastic. And then may keep moving down. You know, Florian, I think that's been a very good description of the law and the nuts and bolts. So we probably have that covered for now. But sort of in terms of the implementation, what you see on the ground, could you catch us up on your views of how the policy is working, how you're taking advantage of it, and what we're seeing so far?
Yeah, I think at the moment, I think our latest viewpoint here simply is that the NEM program for the last I would say year and a half at least has been too unpredictable in terms of its benefits for it to truly be considered in terms of the economics of the project. This is mainly, while the structure that KK described overall has some merit to it, the main problem is simply that the quotas are not large enough, and as long as that is not clearly and sustainably for the long term fixed, I think most developers and investors that are looking to grow this market quickly, and this market is continued to grow quickly with or without NEM, they will not be able to really take in consideration the NEM benefits, which I would like to highlight here are not only benefits to the owner and operator of the solar facility, like Petronas, for example, or BCIS, as the case may be, but it is also a benefit to TNB or the utility, because they will be receiving cost competitive renewable energy, and also to the facility, meaning the factory, for example, on which the solar plant is implemented. And I would like to point out here as well that the key risk that people are concerned about, especially if there's a third party involved in terms of a leasing or PPA, is what happens if the factory or the off-taker in this case is not around for whatever reason. The company goes bankrupt, decides to move. How can this risk be managed? And there, most investors will want to see at least a floor, at least a protection that they are able to sell their electricity and have a minimum level of return. Everybody makes an assessment in terms of their off-taker being financially sound and being around for, let's say, a 10 to 20 year period over which the PPA is structured, and there are contractual measures put in place to compensate the developer in case the off-taker breaches the PPA implementation. But still, this is a risk that every solar plant has to deal with. And if the utility and the regulator provides a floor for that, it gives a very strong incentive for the industry to grow quicker. And we have seen this in China, for example, where there is the possibility to switch to selling electricity to the grid rather than to the facility on which roof you operate, albeit as a very low price. But at least it gives a floor to the returns if the off-taker is not around anymore. And that, to me, is really the strongest benefit. And it is a benefit, as I pointed out, to everyone involved. It helps mitigating this core risk with neither the factory nor the investor can oftentimes resolve by themselves, because nobody can really promise for 20 years to be around with full certainty. And on the other hand, if the price is very low, this is clearly a benefit also to the grid operator in being able to absorb very low cost renewable energy. So that, to me, is really the biggest benefit that a net metering program or any support the utility can provide. And the regulator should focus on mitigating this risk rather than finding necessarily a way how in every single operating year each kilowatt hours can be compensated for. That is something that can be dealt with on a contractual basis. But this key risk of what happens if the off-taker, if the PPA basically is terminated, how can the energy still be put to good use that is generated by the facility? I think that's the greatest benefit that would give a boost to the industry going forward.
Great, thank you, Gordon. I'll ask you a very quick follow-up question and go on to Malik for the same question. I think people may get the impression that the entire solar rooftop business in Malaysia is the same as the NEM business, but I guess you're implying that there's still an ability, obviously, to build solar rooftop outside of NEM, NEM. And in fact, other countries such as Thailand or Vietnam have really gone a full commercial route. How do those issues balance in Malaysia? What is the non-MEM market? How does it look as a totality?
Well, I think this is shifting. I think everybody was still, I would say, until maybe middle of last year, expecting that the majority of the business will be conducted with the NEM support. But I think that view has now been shifting, and that, at least I can say for our side, has led to some often a bit painful renegotiations of the commercial arrangements, because this key risk had to be addressed, which previously was taken care of by the NEM. So that clearly has held back projects in the country. But as you said, there is a possibility you can restrict any energy outflow to the grid and proceed simply on a so-called self-consumption basis. So only power that can be consumed locally will be generated by the solar facility. And that, as you pointed out, is actually the case in Thailand, for example. There is no ability for NEM. There's no net metering arrangement. So all projects which are also on the multiple gigawatt scale already in Thailand are done on a self-consumption basis. But again, having said that, this limits the accessible market for this kind of business, especially for third-party developers, which are really turbocharging the expansion of solar rooftop business. And again, in my opinion, to no benefit other than the additional requirement for balancing in the grid, which in any case has to be achieved if you want to have a decarbonized grid in the future.
Great. Thank you for that. It's very, very useful. And Malik, maybe if you could kind of wrap up on, we've this one question looking at where the regulation is, and maybe I think we're moving towards the kind of practical impacts. What are your views on the ground of how the regulation in the industry is developing?
Thanks, Jack. I think I want to touch slightly on some of the good points that I think I can observe from the NEM 3.0. The separation that they have in terms of the category itself, the three different categories, I think that is good. Simply because I think during NEM 2.0, I mean, we were supporting some of our residential development stuff, and the quota was mainly taken up by the commercial industrial. So having a separate category for domestic as well as some government buildings is good. Unfortunately, the 200 megawatt somehow is considered, as what Thorin mentioned, considered small for such an industry here in Malaysia. In fact, I remember one of the stakeholder engagement that we have said before the code 10.0 ended. I think the industry asked for something about a 3 gigawatt kind of capacity. But at the end of the day, the announcement came out to be 500 megawatt only. I think this is something that we just still through the engagement with SEDA, I think the industry is trying to push for more quota for that. So that's something that I totally agree with Florian now, that with the size of potential here in Malaysia, there could be more quota available. And that somehow pose some challenges for some of the developers like us, simply because when the NEM 2.0 quota ended, the discussion on that, or the negotiation with our customers have to move from the NEM perspective to Selco. And because at that time there was no certainty on the NEM 3.0. And when we started to have the NEM 2.0, the quota, I think, being taken up by within like 4 months. And that pushed some of the project to go back under Selco when it wasn't planned for NEM. And having a Selco, based on Selco guideline, there are some limitations. Some of the capacity has to be dropped because with NEM you are able to do with 75% of maximum demand, in which by Selco in the recent development, I think we're limited by even less than the 60% city ratio, or even sometimes you have to do a proper load profiling, load profile study on each premises. So there's a lot of limitation with regard to Selco, and I wish we would have done it better for customers in this case for the NEM. And also I think having an SMP for NEM Nova system marginal price would be probably less attractive to some customers. Having a one-to-one before during 9.0 was actually one of the key drivers to accelerate the growth. If you look at in the year of 2020, towards the end, we can quite see significant numbers of projects being developed and quota being taken. So I think that's also something that, whether the policy can be reviewed with regards to having SMP or having other measures or other ways to provide those selling back to the grid. I think this is also somehow reflected when we look into some of the projects that we have. The decision by customers, they've been delaying some of that, hoping for, is there any more quota for them that will be available? So hence the decision has been slowed at the moment because of expectation to wait for additional quota if it's available. But from the session that we had earlier, panel session was mentioned by Seda that government is really listening to the industry. So hopefully we can see some good news with regards to this. But most importantly, I think the aspiration or the intention from the market is very clear. People want to move to this. So I think the policy, even though as what we mentioned by KK, is only for 10 years, but we believe post 10 years, the advancement of technology like the battery storage and so on will be able to support further the uptake for solar. And that's my view on this.
Great, thank you very much. So, I think we've had a very in-depth conversation so far with very long, detailed answers, which have been fantastic for each of the participants. We're getting fairly close to the end, and the organizer has kindly given us a little bit of an extension. So we're about 5 minutes from the original end. We're gonna get about 5 minutes more. So I think that gives us perfect time for kind of one last wrap-up question. And I think what I'd like to do is to throw this a little bit to each of you to take in your own way. I think I'd like to go in the general direction of either telling the audience what you're doing on the ground, give them some insights into something nuts and bolts, or if there's anything else that you think we've really missed in this panel and you think the audience should know, maybe this is an opportunity to close out with sort of a key fact from each of you. And with that, why don't I start this time with Florian, and we'll work the way around the panel. Any kind of closing remarks or things you'd like to leave the audience with, Florian?
Again, I think to me, the one important thing is for everyone who is in the business of considering solar as part of their on-site energy mix, I think is really important to communicate here. And I'm sure Malik and KK are going to support me on this. If you currently have a sizable rooftop for an industrial commercial facility and there's no solar on it at the moment, you are clearly leaving money on the table. There's a substantial amount of money to be saved if you enter into a power purchase agreement, or even if you so decide to invest yourself, if that is what you feel is more appropriate. And so I would encourage everyone to take this in consideration, and contact, talk with our team from BCIS or Malik's team, or KK if you would like to invest yourself. There is an opportunity here for each individual facility owner, and I think this is really the most important. And it makes sense for your bottom line, and it makes sense for achieving overall environmental targets. And that's really the most important thing I think everybody should take away from these sessions, and try to see if this is right for them.
Great. No, good points. And I think rooftops has become now a fairly mature sector with pretty strong government involvement, very capable companies. I think your point is right that it's quite easy now for companies to get for potential off-takers to get an understanding of what they can do, get several opportunities and options. So a good point for them to look at that. How about you, KK? Anything that you'd like to wrap up with?
Yeah, so I echo what Florian have mentioned. If your roof is still not installed with solar panel, you better quickly look into this. Okay, without any obligation, just talk to any one of us, so we can share with you the pro and cons of going capex or zero capex. So model for your adoption of going green, going solar, reduce carbon footprint, cut your TNB bill. And another one important thing is you actually have a double tax incentive. We will help you to apply for this double tax incentive that the government is giving, that you will achieve humongous savings, okay, for doing good for the planet itself, reduce carbon footprint and save electricity and pay less tax. Yeah, so do contact us, then we can share more to you. Thank you. I'll leave my contact in the chat box. You all can get in touch with me. Thank you.
Great.
Thank
and
you.
then Malik, if you'd like to just take a couple of minutes to give us a quick wrap up, and that'd be great.
Right. I think couldn't agree more with both KK and Forum with regards to whether you take it, start exploring for your facilities itself, whether it's outright purchase or whether it's zero capex, a lot of incentive, investment tax allowance, double tax, as well as through the corporate PPA, significant savings, I would say, from the current bill. I also like to wrap up more on, say, moving forward, this, Jack, with the policy, which is interesting for Malaysia. I know it was announced way back, a few years back, on the market liberalization, the MESI 2.0, and within this MESI 2.0, there are plans to have a third-party access, open access. We've seen some of the, I would say, interests of some of the customers, particularly the RE100 companies, MNCs, or even some of the Malaysian GLCs who have a very clear sustainability target, wanted to have this, but have limitations with regards to their rooftop space. And some of them are actually, leasing a high-rise building and so on. But they still want to have this renewable energy, particularly solar in this case, having a third-party access, or in fact a peer-to-peer trading, being allowed or being and developed here would be great to the industry, you see. And also we help Malaysia in the longer run to attract all these foreign investors with regards to data centers, with regards to setting up facilities here in Malaysia. And also I think there are also opportunity, perhaps maybe in those who have a big space with a rooftop, or mainly on the rooftop space like warehouse and so on. Having a third-party access and so on, they could actually utilize the space that they have in those areas, and sell back to other customers who might require those power from solar and renewables in this case. Because I think we're trying to, unlike large-scale solar that you are actually developing on a land something, we should look into ways in Malaysia, like utilizing unused space, big warehouses, roof space, buffer zone. Those are underutilized land. In fact, some of the water bodies that are available within which is nearly connected or very close to the grid and so on. And those are the areas that needs to be expedited without actually us cutting all the trees, develop scale solar for power. I think there's a lot of opportunity and there's a lot of demand and potential growth in this. Indeed.
Great. Well, good. Well, thank you very much, and thank you to all the panelists. I think I need to wrap this up. We've come fairly close to the end of it, but I think this has been a very, very good and very useful panel. Great to hear the insights from everyone and the views on the Malaysia market. I think maybe what I'll conclude with a point Malik made, and a point that Florian continues to make, is that this is the way that the world is going on the industrial side. Companies are pushing for this. We're seeing these requirements, and I think from an industrial side, it seems like the way things are going to go. So it seems good to see that Malaysia is joining sort of the bandwagon in this region. I hope it takes speed and moves forward. We see Malaysia as the next sort of major rooftop market. It seems like there's still some things to overcome, but we're in a positive direction. So with that, I want to thank all of the panelists and thank the organizer for what I thought was a very interesting panel. I hope the audience enjoyed it as well. So one last thank you to all the panelists for your good contributions today.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you all the panelists for bringing us such a wonderful discussion, and thank you, Jack, for moderating the panel, and thank you for Malik and Kong and Florian Benholt for participating in the discussion and for your insightful sharing. This is all the session prepared for APAC Solar Energy Digital Event 2021 Malaysia chapter. Thank you for all your participation. Hope the distance will not separate each other and blocking the approach of opportunities. And do not forget, we still have matchmaking on the Jubilee platform for 2 days. For our next step, we will move Philippines Asia Solar Energy Digital Event. Philippines chapter will be held in November 2021. For more information, please kindly visit our website or connect with our New Venture official LinkedIn account. We do look forward to meeting you again. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.